For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education,
and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us.
Join us in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government come
together.
It's 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. Steve is AWOL, but I'll talk. Here he is. Okay, I'm going to call the Simsbury Board of Selectmen meeting to order. It's a special meeting because we moved the official original date, so that's why it's a special meeting, and it's 6 o'clock p.m. And I would like to ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and hope you noticed our brand new flags outside.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so as everyone knows, we have a public hearing tonight on the proposed sale of the .36 lot at the corner of Firetown and Owensbrook Boulevard. We have had people speak on this at public audience, and we apologize for the rescheduling of the public hearing. So I have a list of the people here for the public hearing, and we do have somebody on Zoom, and I was gonna try to do that first. So Helen Peterson is there. One thing I will tell you, 3 minutes tops. We have this many people here, that's all. We will cut you off, and I don't wanna appear rude, but we're gonna do that. Steve and I are gonna tag team on our timers here. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Helen Peterson. And Tom, you're running that show?
Should be. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Helen.
Here I am, Helen Peterson, 20 Longview Drive. Good evening, everybody. I regret that I'm not being there with you tonight to participate in such an important matter. Now, even though I am a member of the Open Space Committee, I speak to you tonight as an individual. I am opposed to the sale of the open space land at the intersection of Firetown Road and Owensbrook Boulevard today, just as I was the first and the second time I addressed the proposal with you. And again, my deep concern is the same, the total disregard of the town's ordinance, chapter 21-8. It clearly defines the orderly process for disposition of our open space land. Also, the proposal to you by town staff suggested an unrealistic and inappropriate financial gain to be expected from such a sale. In addition, the proposal from the staff elicited a premature and uninformed discussion among you, and I fear concluded with your positive opinion and your action to send the 824 referral to the Planning Commission. In the 2 months since that meeting, and after several well-intended citizens' efforts to question your action, some events were interjected to alter the proposed process. It is my sincere opinion these attempts do not meet the spirit and intent of the ordinance. Rather, the process has been further skewed. I state my point of view here because I am concerned you were not properly apprised properly apprised of the ordinance, chapter 21-8. To review, open space land belongs to the people. Your responsibility is to protect that public trust. The Open Space Committee is entrusted to provide the utmost due diligence to inform you, all the related commissions, and the public, so that the deliberations are informed factually and thoroughly. Only then can your decision reflect your responsibility to protect that public trust. To date, each of the related commissions have already responded to you, and here we are at the public hearing. But the Open Space Committee has not yet met to have their opportunity to complete their due diligence, so important to be shared with all of you. The proposal was presented by staff as a test case. I am convinced the proposal fails the test. It does not meet the standard of quality intended in the ordinance, chapter 21(8).
Helen, we're
So respectfully, I request the Board of Selectmen consider the spirit and intent of the ordinance and reject this proposal. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
I do want to add that it is not on the agenda to vote on this tonight because we are waiting for the open space referral, which was a 60-day window like the other commissions, which we will get at our December 9th meeting. The next person I have on the list is Linda Kennedy.
And just stand here.
Over at the podium, please.
I'm opposed to the state.
Oh, you have to state your name and address.
Linda Kennedy, 18 Longview Drive.
Thank you.
I'm opposed to the sale of town-owned open space. This October was my 50th anniversary of my arrival in Simsbury. Through the decades, numerous boards considered and approved policies that would acquire and maintain open space as more and more of Simsbury's land was subdivided. It was very successful. The absence of overdevelopment is one of the reasons people wanted to live here and one of the reasons folks want to develop here. I remember voting on referenda for such purchases. What has changed and who changed it? How are parcels being considered and chosen for sale? How is the value determined? Who benefits from this? What is the town gaining? And what are we losing? The decision to sell open space belongs to the owners. The residents of Simsbury need to be part of any decision, especially one that signals a U-turn in our approach to town-owned open space.
Thank you.
Do I lead?
Dave Galt.
I just want to say that I'm glad that it's on 21.8 now, and I don't know why it took so much effort to get it onto 21.8. And it's not quite on 21.8, as Helen was alluding to, as part of the process that happened, and then we got onto 21.8, so things are kind of happening out of order. So if we do other parcels, let's go 21.8, A, B, C, D in the order that's laid out. I know we got a legal opinion from town attorney that said it doesn't have to be in that order, but there is an order, A, B, C, D. Let's just go down that order, because that order actually has a logical sense to it, and I think it would make sense to use that. I'm a little concerned that it took so much effort to get it onto the right process, right? This parcel is open space, and it doesn't need to be de-restricted. And the land use commissions do have a purview in this discussion, right? So let's just, if we're gonna do more of these, go on the right process. If you had gone the right process previously, we wouldn't have, such a kerfuffle, I don't think, right? It's because it seemed like we were trying to skirt around the town laws. And now, people are concerned. So let's just stick to the town ordinances, please.
Thank you. Diane Nash.
Diane Nash, 5 Marywood. A test case. What are we testing and why? The speed with which we can rid ourselves of random useless parcels, called efficiency in disposition. We forget the first line of the description. Who calls them useless? Who calls them worthless? Who translates worthlessness to us in the town to the worth for an individual property owner? Economic development, the selling price is $15,000. At our mill rate percentage times our current tax rate, that translates to less than $350 a year. The cost of mowing, why mow it? Is the new owner going to have an ordinance saying he must mow that lawn? None of the reasons given make sense. Why? Other than we're going to test this because we're going to use this process on different parcels. There are 8, 9 under negotiation, we were told. But we're not told where those properties are. I don't understand that. If you place building restriction on this parcel, this third of an acre, that does not preclude the owner from building a very large parcel, including a multifamily apartment, on his piece of the current property, because it allows side and rear view allowance. It allows a parking place, a parking lot. Okay, you can't build on it, but you can park cars on it. It's in an R15 zone, and we're already talking about modifying our lot sizes to smaller lot sizes and putting by right other apartments and making them two-family. So don't think in your brain, all we're doing is giving somebody else ownership of this.
Time's up, Diane.
I wanna say,
Thank you.
Simsbury has always protected its land, and they need to continue to do so.
Carolyn Stewart.
My name is Carolyn Stewart. I live at 5 Talma Circle. The reason I bought my house was the open space in the neighborhood that we have. It gave us openness, kept the houses from being shoulder to shoulder. The other purpose of the open space is to preserve and conserve and maintain the water, to be good water and not become bad and filtered with dirty water. The open space in this town is why a lot of people come here. We don't want our houses shoulder to shoulder. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Messino.
Good evening, Susan Messino, 41 Madison Lane. I've spoken before on what are alternatives and why I think we need a better evaluation of this. The 3 things I want to mention tonight are the price, and related to that issue, I think Diane Nash is the first person who's actually mentioned what is the net money we might get every year. No one knows the net money we would get from the sale price minus the staff time, legal time, and all of that related information. I'm a member of the Open Space Committee. I forgot to mention that. I'm speaking as an individual. I want to mention that the Open Space Committee will be using our full data disposition form on Wednesday at our work group meeting to try and get answers to all of these questions that no one has even been asking, which really honestly scares me. We really need full information to consider an irreparable decision like this. And I'm concerned that people aren't even asking the right questions. And if you don't ask the right questions, you can't get the right answers. So I also want to mention there was a letter from the Conservation Commission. Marjorie can't be here tonight. One of the main things that was reflected in the Conservation Commission letter was the discussion at the last open space meeting and then followed up at the Conservation Commission meeting on alternatives and other initiatives we have in town now, the pollinator pathway. This is on the POCD on the bike route. This could be a small orchard or, you know, just a little spot for the neighbors, a little pretty spot with the tree. We really need to think about the idea that we have an embarrassment of riches, that we would say that any piece of our land has no public value. That was not good. So I think this is an opportunity for a test case to show democracy in action, how to do a really thorough review, make decisions with the full information. And I just want to say also that I'm really concerned about the false divisions being fomented about people trying to ask questions and advocate for things that they care about. That's what makes a community great, and that's what makes Simsbury great. And what we need to role model is the right process, the right decisions, civic public discourse, which is all too rare now. And you know, democracy is not about always getting along. It's about having the courage to do the right thing. And I'll leave it at that, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Susan. Diane and Jim Moody.
Three minutes each.
Well, then one at a time.
No,
No, that's.
Oh.
we won't even be 3 minutes probably. We like it short and sweet.
Go ahead.
He's never done this. So he's a newbie, so bear with us. Okay, Diana Moody, 7 Elsie Way.
Jim Moody, 7 Elsie Way.
Okay, so I'm gonna read just a little bit here, then we have some questions. So open space is what defines Simsbury and why we live here. I think everybody would agree with that. Why did this disposition even start down the track without making sure we were on the right track? And as the first of many pieces of public land. So how can this benefit the public without asking the proper questions or consider alternatives? Why were we trying so hard to avoid our own excellent and thoughtful ordinance? Shopping for our public land to sell to private individuals at a bargain price should never be streamlined. It's without question that the Board of Selectmen love this town, and this is why you've chosen to do what you do. And I thank you for that. And Wendy in particular, I just wanna make a note because I did watch the open space meeting, and I know that since this is all new to everybody, you were really trying very hard to understand this, and I know that you're gonna give it all your effort, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So, but we do have some questions to consider, which Jim will talk about.
Hi, I want to thank members of the board and our town manager, Mr. Nelson, for your consideration and your attention to this matter. I've been in town for 37 years. I'm a retired finance executive. I managed pension fund money for a large aerospace company, savings plan money, over $40 billion in total. Very process-oriented, very detailed-oriented person. When I first heard that this was an issue, I said, certainly there's a process the town's going to follow. And I was told that, yes, there's this ordinance 21.8. And so I have some questions. Is that being followed, for example? Is the board, are each of your members fully aware of what is required by those ordinances? And are you 100% ready then to proceed because you are fully aware of the requirements and the process that's going to need to take place? Does the board, at this point, open question, does the board have the ability to stop this process, or are we so far along and committed that it's just this type of conversation is moot? I understand that Wendy, that there,
We're at 3 minutes, so.
So can we split it one and one?
that's what I asked for, but
You said you didn't want to split it, so.
I'm sorry, can we take that back?
so
We
ask
only have a
permission to
couple more.
revise and
Okay.
extend my remark.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
were you correct in the September 10th meeting that of the Board of Selectmen that 21.8 did not have to be applied in a certain order? I think I have a question on that. Has there been the official site walk that is required by the ordinance? And most importantly, as the finance guy, what's with the bargain purchase price? I understand this thing's been appraised at $72,000 or valued at 72, and it's being sold for $15,000. And lastly, is this just the first of many of these bargain purchase prices, bargain purchase price sales that are all queued up and ready to go, just waiting for us to kind of short circuit the process so that we can do it more expeditiously and more efficiently by just doing it rather than going through the process that's required by law? That's all.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for keeping the time. I appreciate that. Don Rieger?
Yes. Of course, we need more than 3 minutes.
3 minutes is tough. I am, I must admit, the author of section 21.8 a long time ago. And one of the things we developed at the time was a list of questions that you folks should have the ability to have answered before you make a decision. I don't know if that document still exists for you, but I recommend it if it doesn't. I don't have a position on this particular transaction. I think it's important that it be done in the open with full disclosure to everybody. But as I think about the substance of a deal like this, I look at two cases. One is the case in which the town offers to sell the parcel, in this case to the abutting property owner. And in that case, it seems to me it's potentially problematic because the property owner who abuts bought the property on the assumption that it was protected by the adjacent open space. And he's potentially put in a position of having to pay up, admittedly a bargain price, but nonetheless pay up, in effect to preserve the status quo for his property. And there are elements of fairness there that you have to grapple with, it seems to me. On the other side, if the transaction is initiated by the abutting property owner, who recognizes that potentially he could be outbid if you conduct the sale in an open way, and is willing to take that risk, and if you in your wisdom conclude that the property doesn't have compelling value for the public, I think that's frankly an easier case. So bottom line, it's important to follow the process, to have all the information. You'll note that the first question on this questionnaire we developed in 2016 was, who initiated this transaction? And what interest did that person initiating it have in the transaction? I think the town is potentially in a conflict situation, trying to work its budget miracles, potentially at the expense of the adjacent property. But you have to balance those equities, not I. Thank you.
The last person I have for public hearing is Ellen Gilbert.
My name is Ellen Gilbert. I live at 126 Hot Meadows Street, Unit 3E. I want to say that from looking at the posting out on the bulletin board, that rather than referring it to an open space, it was referred to as non-conforming vacant parcel of town. And that's not, those weren't words that I've heard in these meetings before. And I've been
coming to them pretty regularly. It's been talked about as being open space and it needs to be treated as open space. If it can be handled as open space, then make the space open to a lot of possibilities. This is page 41 of this POCD, the copy that I have. It wasn't the one that was actually voted on, but and I just want to quote, open space preservation is also important regionally. Preserved lands in Simsbury contribute to a regional system of open space and wildlife corridors that extends far beyond Simsbury borders. It will become clear that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. These efforts should continue. And so looking at this piece of property, it is tiny, but it could be managed by different groups within the town, be it garden club, be it the Grange, and it could be a pollinator garden, and it could be the conduit for bugs and birds to go from one open space to another. It's not an orphan piece of land, and I restate that. If truly needs to be sold, then make it available to townspeople, not just the neighbor, like I said, the Grange Garden Club, or somebody who is willing to put the effort into the beauty and character of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, I have no one else left for public hearing. Okay, if you wanna come up, if you could.
Sorry.
There's 3 more people, okay, can you, just add you to the list.
Hi, Nat Kennedy, 18 Longview Drive, next door to Helen Peterson, 20 Longview Drive. 57 years of peace, 57 years of town leadership in Helen Peterson. I vocally support everything that Helen said. There's nothing wrong with what Helen said. I trust her implicitly. Thank you for considering Helen Peterson.
Thank you. Maybe she'll run for office.
I second that.
Yeah.
That's all right, you go ahead. My name's on the wrong piece of paper, Wendy,
Okay,
it's
thanks,
Karen.
Karen, I'll move you over.
Yeah, sorry.
That's good.
Danielle Guillermo, 3 Crestwood Road in Simsbury. And I think my concern is about the precedent that this proposed land sale will start with respect to selling additional parcels of open space. And I don't think that's a good direction for the town. I've heard people say that these are small orphan parcels that have no value to the town. But if you look at Simsbury holistically, you'll see that all these small parcels around the town contribute to the aesthetic beauty of the town. And this natural beauty increases our real estate values, it attracts visitors, and enhances the quality of life for our residents. In addition, the small parcels of land that's distributed around town provide important wildlife habitat. And in many cases, those parcels were designated as town open space in order to counterbalance the prior development of the surrounding land. If the town's main concern is maintenance, and there are many alternatives that can be considered, alternate strategies for challenging maintenance areas can be discussed with open space, the pollinator pathway group, or area garden clubs for inexpensive solutions such as native grasses and shrubs, meadows, and rewilding. All these things will enhance an orphan parcel's value for pollinators, birds, and wildlife. I think it's important to replace the short-term thinking with long-term strategic thinking. And a long-term vision should include the protection of our land that will maintain the natural beauty in our town. It'll protect our ecosystems and wildlife habitats and ensure that the generations that come after us can enjoy the same Simsbury that we are. Much of our natural beauty in this town can be attributed to the hard work and forward thinking of people like Helen Peterson, Marjorie Winters, Susan Messino, and other savvy town officials that understood the value of protecting rural character, and they understood much more important that protection was more than a short-term money grab of selling off our property. All of our land is a valuable commodity that can disappear very quickly if not fiercely protected. Just look at how much land we've already lost to development in the town over the past 5 years. It's astounding and it should alarm us all. We should do everything possible to protect each piece of property that we own, and I hope the town officials start putting their resources and energy into other town imperatives rather than trying to upend one of Simsbury's greatest assets, which is its open space.
Thank you. Karen.
Hi everyone, my name's Karen Cordner. I live at 65 High Ridge Road in West Simsbury, and I wanted to thank you all for your service, your wonderful service to our town. I'm opposed to the sale of this particular parcel that we've been speaking about tonight. I am a member of the Open Space Committee, but I'm speaking as a 45-year resident of our beautiful town. My feelings are exactly those of Helen, who led us, and everyone else who has spoken tonight. Wonderful comments and information. Although the parcel is less than an acre, it's valuable for our cherished wildlife. That could be, as others have mentioned, pollinators, small animals. It's a corridor for larger animals to move around and enjoy their life. And if for some reason the person who might buy it under this particular plan puts something on there, then it's gone. Even if he or she, whoever it is, plants grass. Grass is an environmental desert that is often ruined with pesticides, over-fertilization. So in my opinion, there's no good reason not to permanently designate this parcel as open space. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else here for the public hearing? Yes?
Yeah, got me too.
Camilla Thompson, 30 Metacom Drive. And I want to, again, thank you all for your service and for everybody here being so passionate about what we value so much about Simsbury, about our open space. And I guess my question is, and I think it's kind of the elephant in the room, is this a change in policy? Obviously other pieces of property have been spoken about and alluded to tonight, not only this one particular one that we're speaking about. And if it is a change in policy, then I think it's really important to let the citizens of the town know exactly how the decisions are going to be made about each particular parcel of land, and that the process is open and not opaque to the public. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask again, is there anyone else here for the public hearing? I know people do going once, going twice, going 3 times, so I'm gonna do that. Because with that, I'm gonna ask for a motion to close the public hearing. Just to comment, we will get the letter from Open Space, which will be part of our next agenda and will be attached to the agenda and is welcome to be read in public audience. But given that we've heard from everyone here tonight, this is that we should be able to close the public hearing. I see someone making their head, but I'm opening that up to the board. I did make the mistake of not opening the public hearing, so I just will have to go with that. But I think that we'll have the letter from Open Space, we will have the letter following the 21-8 process. We have had all the letters, we will have them at our December 9th meeting. And we will be able to put this on the agenda potentially for the Board of Selectmen. So I'm gonna ask if somebody would like to make that motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Is there
Just for
any
discussion,
discussion?
if we close the public hearing, we'll be able to continue to hear the report from the open space committee.
I did ask that question.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it'll be in the packet, and I did say that we could have it read in public audience. So I think that's fair.
Sure.
So with that, I'd like to take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. So next up is the plain present, no, public audience.
I'll try to get
Hey.
past it. Sorry.
And can we get some more chairs in here? I think we have people waiting outside. Tom, you think you could grab some chairs because the people from McLean are here and they're standing in the hall? Yeah, we should have planned that. So I have Diane, Susan, and Jill on the public audience list.
And
Jill, I
Joan.
thought you retired.
Joan retired.
Okay, so I would like to call, and for public, thank you. For public audience, you have 5 minutes, and again, we'll stop you at 5 minutes. The first person I have on the list is Diane Nash. And hopefully this will not be the same comments that we heard in public audience.
Public hearing.
Public hearing, I just like to make that point.
Well, I should add my last 2 minutes, but I won't. But I am puzzled, Diane Nash, 5 Berrywood. I'm puzzled, I'm confused, because with all of the disruption that we had about the process on this land sale, we're suggesting tonight the same process. You have on your agenda 3 Farms Village Road. It's the address to purchase a piece of land. And our town manager is suggesting we take it to planning for them to make a decision, a ruling on it. And it's all wrong with the process because we haven't bought the property, we haven't discussed the property. Don't go that way. Don't start the process going to planning before the normal process has taken place. We almost did this with a piece of property that's designated to be preserved. It's on the state registry, and had the press not told the public what was happening, that property would probably have been demolished. Because it was on the agenda for the board, the planning commission, to vote to take it off the registry so that zoning, who hadn't yet ruled on it, could have a smooth path going forward. So sometimes, and you know they still may demolish the building. They still may take it off the registry. But the process is important, as you're hearing tonight. And yes, we are passionate. I am passionate. I'm old. I don't have the energy to fight and speak quickly like the rest of you do. But I'm here tonight, taking time, adjusting my hearing so I can be here and have my voice heard. We have to keep processing correctly, protecting what we have, not destroy it and then say, we made a mistake. Not with our resources. You can make a mistake with something, but you sell a piece of land, you destroy your property, you change the zoning, and you've destroyed a major part of what makes Simsbury, who is abundant with natural resources. And it brings people to town, and yes, brings economic development to town too. So let's not just look at how much money are we gonna get from this parcel? Or if we destroy this property, we can build something bigger and have a lot of people living here and going to the pizza parlor underneath it. No, go through the process and make sure we all have a voice in why we live here and continue to live here. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan? Back for round two.
Okay, round two, I'm gonna speak quickly, I'm not that young, but I have 7 points. So I just wanna mention that it was wondered, how did this all start? The assertion is that the property owner called the town and said, can I buy the property? And then we gave him a cheap price. Like, is that how we handle our land? Start this whole thing down a process because someone calls and says they wanna buy the land next to their house? And why do they wanna buy it, since they were getting it for free as a beautiful little piece of land? Probably they're gonna make a lot of money when they sell their property. Why isn't the town getting that money instead of that private individual? In terms of why I was nodding my head about closing the public hearing, once the public hearing is closed, no more information can be added to the public record for this. And I think it's unfair to not have the open space letter be part of the public record. So I don't know if that's true, but I thought when the public hearing closes, that closes the record for that issue. So that's why I thought that was not okay. And we had already talked about having the public hearing open for multiple nights and open in order to receive the open space letter officially at the December 9th hearing, meeting. So that was not good. I wanna thank Ellen for bringing up, why are we not calling this open space? We determined it was open space back in September, at the September 4th open space meeting that is on all the land designations, maps, inventory, town databases, GIS, all of that, it's open space, parcel number 3 in the designations, but every single time I see it on an agenda, it's a non-conforming lot or vacant lot, like every other name except for open space. How are people supposed to know what's going on when we don't use the right words? I'd like to thank Danielle for talking about the beauty of the town and in all of that. I mean, it's so important to people. And I'm very concerned that the wildlife, the database maps for natural diversity, all of these things, the people making these decisions either don't understand these issues or are not paying attention. It's really scary. Number 3, the checklist that Don brought up. I wanna thank him for writing the inventory, writing the ordinance, and writing the checklist, because Simsbury has an incredible set of tools to help us make the right decisions. We should be using them. And we're gonna be using this checklist at the open space meeting on Wednesday. And it's a very comprehensive list that goes through all the information that should be considered to do anything like this. I don't know why the Planning Commission didn't use their POCD consistency checklist. They didn't discuss it at all. And we were all promised that that is what would be used to make every decision in the town, was the consistency checklist. Not a word about it. So checklists are to prevent accidents. That's where airline pilots and surgeons and all of that have checklists, because you can't fix something when you break it like that. I wanna say that the Grange is willing to take care of this property if we need some time in the meantime. We've talked about things, we could get free trees for an orchard. I just think we really need to have some democratic process to figure out really the right thing to do. Number 5, I'm concerned that no one even knows where to find information. Everyone's calling me every time about everything that's going on in town. What's the public hearing? What's going on? I said, I don't know, I think it's happening. So finally, the sign's on the land, I looked, you can't really read it, I don't know where it was published, but I went to the town website just today, couldn't see it, I typed in public hearing. Not one word about a public hearing on the town website in the search box. Then I typed in Firetown Road, not one word. I typed in a few other little things, not one word. The town search engine does not seem to pull up anything since 2020. I don't know what's going on with it, but now I know why no one can find out anything that's going on. Number 6 or 5, I'm not sure. This is going on everywhere. I talked to 5 attorneys, planners, planning commissioners, etc. around the state, trying to find out legally What does open space mean? What does binding mean? What is all of this? Because I'm trying to do my job on the open space committee, and they all said to a person, this is going on everywhere, and I can't believe it's going on in Simsbury. So there you go. East Granby, front page of the Current today. They're selling land in East Granby, huge brouhaha. I know, I'm just trying to speak quickly, I'm not angry, I'm not trying to cause a brouhaha. I'm just saying that this is unacceptable. And number 7, and this is personally really painful to me, is I really am proud of what we've done in open space with our forests, our grasslands, our pollinator pathways. We're talking about light pollution, all the things that would make this community healthy. And I planned my fall course for the first years at Trinity College and was planning to highlight the town. And when this all came down in August, that we were trying to slide this through and we're so resistant to using the right process, and then planning didn't ask any questions and shoved it through, and they said, don't listen to any of the letters you got. I changed my whole course because I was so ashamed. I didn't want my students to see this.
Thank you. Jill, where is Jill? Jill Peralta.
That was me and I signed it by mistake, I
Oh,
apologize.
hi Jill. The last person we have is Joan Coe. Lisa Clark, you guys, if you wanna come sit in here, you're welcome to. We added some chairs in the front. These are our presenters who are waiting for the presentation. We join the masses here. Thank you.
I just have to click the thing.
I could.
Okay. Joan Coe, 26 Whitcomb Drive. I've come out of retirement to express my on the purchase of the Simsbury Echo building that is being presented to the Board of Selectmen that should be rejected as an unnecessary burden on the taxpayers and inconsistent with the policy of adding additional items to the capital projects by bumping long-standing projects that have been in the queue for years. The purchase of Simsbury building at 2 Farms Village Road near the high school should remain on the tax rolls and should be sold to a private investor. The building currently generates $14,800 in taxes. The appraised value on the last revaluation was $635,500. The town should not be in the real estate business of purchasing and maintaining buildings that are costly to maintain and administer without any benefit to the community. The numbers associated with the Board of Education's estimate, present and future costs are guesstimates. The costs associated with the purchase and the use of the building for special education. The purchase price of the building is high, considering the market for office buildings have been greatly reduced and some remain vacant due to the market value. The renovation of the building would be costly with all improvements needed presently and in the future. The Board of Education, in their rush to renovate the junior high at a great cost to the taxpayers, did not contemplate having the 6th grade students move to the junior high. As the Board of Education reconfigures the schools, the junior high will need another addition to accommodate the students. There is need to renovate Squadron Line School and plans for other capital improvements. The state is reviewing regionalizing special education, which would negate the need for the additional use of special education facility in the town. The Board of Selectmen should review the additional cost to the taxpayers for this purchase and understand that the grand list has not improved, and all new projects will burden the taxpayers with present costs, longevity costs, administrative costs, and additional services in special education. The Board of Selectmen are fortunate to have Deputy Selectman Steve Antonio, a businessman in town, with approximately a dozen properties to relate to the Board of Selectmen the burden to the business community when taxes are increased. The additional costs and taxes from the purchase will burden the business community, increase costs in the rentals, and taxes on property owners and make Simsbury with no prospects for economic development. The Board of Selectmen should just say no to the purchase of Simscroft Echo property. All of my comments we posted on Simsbury Patch and Twitter at Joan Co. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, John.
You talk slower in your retirement now.
I had fun.
Is there anyone else here for public audience?
Hi, I'm Lori Boyko from 15 Oakhurst Road, and I don't have a whole big written speech. I'm winging it. I can't keep up with the 422 boards we have in town and all of the different things that are just flying through that, as Susan said, people can't even figure out what's going on, and then all of a sudden it's, oh no, this is being talked about tonight. And if we don't hurry up and go, they might vote on it, and then we won't have been able to say anything to the community. I don't know what is going on. It makes no sense to me that we're talking about selling a small parcel of land for a nominal amount of money for almost no tax savings, but we're talking about spending close to $1.7 million on a building for what amounts to 20 students, 10 of whom might not even be from this town. I get that there's some math, fuzzy math, that might produce a tax savings, but they're talking about this building, this Simscroft Echo Farms building, being a school for maximum 20 to 25 students. And we saw what happened with Latimer Lane. We saw what happened with the Flower Bridge. We even saw what happened with the bleachers at the school. Nothing in this town gets done on budget. If anything, it's probably 50% over budget by the time we're done. So this $1.7 million building is all of a sudden going to be $2.5 million, and any projected cost savings is going to be out the window. The cost doesn't even include the cost of additional staff. Yet another school administrator, 3 teachers, 10 paras, 1 speech and language pathologist, 2 clinicians, and 1 contract psychiatrist. There are more people dealing with behavioral and mental health in this building than there are actual educators. Is this a school building, or is this a behavioral and mental health facility that the town is now taking on the responsibility for? At the other Board of Ed meeting last week, they were talking about the fact that they can't afford the capital improvements right now on the sidewalks around Central School and the roof at Tooten Hills. But we're going to buy another building that we're then going to maintain? We're grabbing this building before we've even maxed out our existing space. So I don't even know why we're talking about adding more buildings to the town ownership and taking them off the tax rolls instead of leaving them in the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, no, done. Okay, so that ends public audience. And I don't have to ask for a motion for that. What I would like to move to now is a positive thing. We have Lisa Clark, and I'm sorry, I don't have everything in front of me, Lisa, and Carlene Rhea from McLean to come and do a presentation. I met with Lisa recently, and there's a lot that McLean does, not just for their residents, but for the community at large. So I thought it would be nice for them to come speak to us. And we try to give 15 minutes. I hope that's good for you guys. Okay, that's good. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Clark. I'm the president at McLean, and I brought with me today our vice president of community life, Carlene Ray. And we just wanted to make sure that everyone knew what we've been up to for all these years. So we certainly have done a lot, and happy to share a little bit about that. I hope I didn't jump too far ahead. Oh, it's quick. Got it. So I just introduced ourselves, and here we are. So some of you may already know all of this, but it is so fascinating as I talk to audiences and different families around the town and surrounding areas, Farmington Valley, that they don't realize some of this. So some of this might be repeat, some of it might be new. So Senator George McLean, who actually at one time was a governor for Connecticut, started us really through his will. We are a not-for-profit 501c3. We also own the 4,400 acres of the McLean Game Refuge. We are actually a life plan community, and that used to be called the CCRCs, or continuing care retirement communities. Life plan community is a little bit easier to say, but basically it's for seniors who are looking to age on a campus together. We do have a full continuum of award-winning care, and we've been around for 50 plus years. All right, so a quick little timeline, because I think this is important. The senator wrote his will in 1931, and in 1932 he ended up passing away, and he appointed trustees, and we report to the probate court on all of our doings. And what he wanted us to do was to build a home on the property, which is now 75 Great Pond Road, in addition to preserving the land of the game refuge. And when he passed away, that land was only 3,300 acres. We have since grown it to 4,400. But the first building we put up was in 1971, and that was our health center building. It was done in two parts, and it is where our nursing home lives and our assisted living lives now. As we continue down the timeline, we added independent living. That was a need of the community and a desire for us to do that, to have easily accessible homes, apartments, etc. on our campus. So in 1979, we added the first independent, then we grew to adding more in the late 1990s. And our latest building was erected and opened in 2022, the Goodrich. The Goodrich is named after his wife, Juliet. And it is a wonderful space, has 35,000 square foot of amenities that is open to the public, but primarily used by the residents who live there, and our campus. So here we are today, 2024. You're on the timeline with me, right? I've been at McLean for 25 years. I am only in the seat as president for the last 2, and we're really excited about our future. We are looking at so many different things, but I do want to say we're the only one that has all of these different things around us. And that's something that I'm really proud of for this town, to have that. When we've talked to architects and national organizations like Ziegler or Leading Age, no one has all these things right around us. And these are the things that directly touch us, but there's so much more in the town of Simsbury and the Farmington Valley that makes us one of a kind. So our independent living is part of it, but we have a boundless wellness program, which has all dimensions of wellness that is open to the public for a fee, similar to you might find at the YMCA or Health Tracks. Hot Meadow Country Club is adjacent to our land, and our residents do get access to that. It's just a wonderful thing. And the McLean Game Refuge, the 27 miles of hiking trails, plus being able to hear from Connor, our director of the Game Refuge, on all the wonderful things that he does out there. And then, of course, the health center. Award-winning, and I can say that with confidence because we just received some additional recognition for our assisted living, and our home care and hospice being the only 5-star in the state of Connecticut for satisfaction, as well as our health center services being top choice. So again, something to be proud of for us, all of us, right? So short-term rehab is part of our health services. We have home care hospice that serves 13 towns in the area. Our outpatient therapy clinic also serves the area at large, the whole community, and our assisted living, memory care, and long-term care. I think it's important to know that our long-term care anytime you move onto our campus, you can enter at any of the points, and that is different than other life plan communities. So that's certainly a point I wanna make. We are open access to all. As you live on our campus and do spend down, because healthcare and services are expensive, we do have Medicaid in our system, which some life plan communities do not. I think what's important is we track about $2 million that we cover in the cost of care because of the Medicaid gap. And that's important to recognize. It's not a little number annually. We also do a lot of community outreach, and I wanted Carlene to kind of share some of the highlights here.
Certainly part of Senator McLean's mission was to be of service to this greater community, and we do that in several ways. Our Meals on Wheels program, I just looked back on 2023, we delivered about 12,000 meals to 4 different towns, of which Simsbury is one during that year. That was done with over 60 very steady and regular volunteers. There is a lot of dementia and Alzheimer's in our community in the Farmington Valley. We're very intentional about providing caregiver support groups to help the caregivers get to the resources they need. A community cafe is a wonderful event that happens once a month where caregivers bring their loved ones in to a comfortable social setting and meet each other and network and share resources. Monday through Friday, we operate an adult day program right in our health center for those folks in the community with dementia. We have a scholarship program that helps support that. And our Boundless Wellness, as Lisa mentioned, it's really awesome. It's a gym for those who are aged 55 and older, so you don't have to go to a gym and see young, wonderful, fit people. You're with folks who are 55 and older, and we have a wonderful staff that helps support your goals. We also, in our new building, have the Garmany Performing Arts Center, and if you haven't been, I invite you. We have a wonderful grant from the Garmany Foundation that allows us to bring in wonderful entertainment groups, and they're all free. They're on Saturdays and Sundays, and on our website is our current schedule. And we're also so happy to support the Simsbury Senior Center. Each week we deliver between 25 and 40 hot meals twice a week to support their lunch program.
So what's next? When we built the Goodrich, there was always a plan to continue to expand. That amenity space was intended for more residences. When we look at demographics in the town and beyond, seniors, that number continues to grow. You know that. So what we have done after COVID is we took a pause to say, well, what is the demand? Is it still for life plan communities? We always hear that folks want to stay home. And there is a good balance of that, people wanting to stay home with services versus moving on to a campus like ours. What we discovered is there's still quite a large demand for that, and we are planning to grow again. We are in the process of doing schematic design phase of work to understand where on our property we can grow. And as you can see through our history, that is what we've done, is continue to grow based on the demand in the area. And what we have just recently determined is that we will likely be adding more homes on our campus instead of apartment buildings. We've added the 2 apartment buildings, and we think we need to complement that with homes, as that's a desire of our community. So we're very excited about that. And just for fun, I wanted to show you the map of the game refuge, because not everyone has been able to see this, and to highlight sort of where Simsbury is and our neighboring pieces of property up in Granby and Canton. But it's a wonderful piece of property that we are so privileged to have. And one of the initiatives for the game refuge, as I work with our director, is to find ways to enhance some of our trails to be more accessible to those that have mobility issues. And that's something that we don't have right now. So we're excited about that progress too. So that's what I had. Do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I'd like to see if anybody on the board has any questions, comments.
I don't know if anybody has not seen the Goodrich building, but it's beautiful. You know, I've seen it and performed, and we the Garmany Center is absolutely beautiful. I know that from other things that I do, you guys are great partners to other nonprofits in the community.
We've also hosted the Rotary and the
Yes.
Chamber and are happy to continue to do so if you have any groups that are looking for a great space.
I know even at one point, the Aging and Disability Commission, where we were having meetings there.
Yes, yeah.
So if
And you did some focus groups there.
Yes, we did. So you guys have been a great partner to the town as well as other community groups. And really appreciate that.
Thank you, that's our goal.
I wanna admit that I have never been to the McLean Game Refuge, and I've lived here for 37 years, and I don't know why. I mean, I live really close, but we have a new dog, so maybe we'll take her for a walk there.
We'll send you a map.
Okay.
Send you a map. There's a lot of trails that do allow dogs on leashes.
Okay,
There's
she's on a
only-
leash, believe me.
Only a few that we
Okay.
advise not to.
One thing I did when we spoke, what I found interesting was the collaboration with our social services department and making sure that we take the optimal use of where our seniors who are not residents of McLean can use your facilities. And you guys said that there is a relationship there. And are we meeting the needs to get that information out to our seniors?
Yeah, there's always ways we can enhance communication for sure. I know during the summer months, we have summer concerts and we invited the seniors and the social work team to invite as many people to come because those are free. And we did have people come this summer, so somebody's listening to how we're sharing the word. But if we can get more out, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, cause we have our Aging and Disability Commission, right, so they can share information, you can always send it to me, I could push it out, and the senior newsletter could push it out too, so just to make sure cause it sounds like you have a lot of things that families
And
could
you-
take care of,
You have a
advantage
group,
of.
the Intonations, they
Yes.
do a spring and holiday concert at the Garmany, which we're so happy to host.
And they have buses from McLean that often come to events.
Yes.
Which is wonderful.
Thank you for
I'll
your.
just jump in and thank you on behalf of the staff real quickly. Great relationship and we appreciate the partnership. Everybody asked me to tell you that, so thanks so much for
Thank you for having us.
If the McLean Refuge Director would like input from the Aging and Disability Commission on accessible trails,
That would be great.
Please.
That would be terrific.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thanks so much for coming.
Nice to
Really
see
nice
you.
to see you again.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Nice to meet you.
I don't know.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thanks for your
Thanks,
time.
Marlene.
Thanks, Wendy. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, like, it wasn't so long.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm moving on to the first selectmen's report, and I see that the open space people have left. I was going to make a comment. As chair of open space, I'm in an awkward position because I chair that meeting per charter, and I'm also on the board of selectmen to make decisions for the town as a whole. I do feel that we followed 21-8, we did not follow that in the correct order, but once we identified that as open space, which originally it was not presented to our board as open space, it was the non-conforming lot without the deed. We rectified that situation and followed the path that was necessary. There was nothing specified that it had to be in a certain order, so we have heard from each of the three boards. What planning did was what planning did, I can't speak to their decision making. So I just wanted to speak to that. I did suggest that it was an option to keep the public hearing open, but I felt like we listened to 14 people tonight, and according to town staff, there is nothing that's going to preclude the open space referral from our decision making. So I felt like it was fine to close the public hearing. And I do think that some of the questions that were asked tonight can be included if and when we come to make the decision to vote on it, because there were some good questions from the public tonight, and I think that will be part of our decision making. So just wanted to put that out there, and the people who wanted to hear that are not here. I do have quite a few things to say tonight. As my first selectmen's report, I usually cut it short, but I'm not tonight. One thing I did want to comment on was that many residents received letters from Aquarian that were concerning, talked about lead in their pipes. And I did reach out to get some information, and I did hear from State Representative Melissa Osborne, who did reach out directly to Aquarian. I included what they responded in here, but basically the letters go out to certain houses built at certain year, and there was a cutoff of the build date, and it's basically if there's unknown lead or not, whatever, it may or may not be a serious lead issue. But they sent it to houses, so if an older house got torn down and a new house was built, it still went to that address. But I have the information in here, and everybody received information in their letter, so I just didn't want to ignore that because I had heard from some residents on it. So that's that. The second thing I wanted to talk about was that we just finished a major election in our state, our town, and our country, and it was the first time that Simsbury had early voting, as did Connecticut. So on behalf of our residents, our boards and commission, our town staff, and the state, I would like to thank all involved in the enormous undertaking handled by our registrars or voters, town clerk's offices, and on November 5th. And it was preceded by 14 days of early voting. Our Democratic registrar of voters, Karen Cortez, and our Republican registrar of voters, Susan Salina, worked diligently to implement this process and make it seem seamless and smooth for our voters. I know how much work went on behind the scenes. I've seen them because my office is down there and I'm not here that much, but they are always here working on this. And I watch them pull their teams together and make it happen. We should all be proud of everyone who worked during the early voting days, election day, and behind the scenes. And I thank them for providing us with confidence in this voting process. So that's that. I have a message here from Karen and Susan, who could not be here tonight because they're home in bed because they have to get up tomorrow for a recount for the District 8 election. We would like to thank Brett Marchand and Mike Perrone for countless hours of IT support, Isaiah, Brad, Derek, Jake, David, Dan, and Matt for extraordinary logistics and equipment support, Kevin Clemens, Highway Department staff, and Fire Chief Todd Myers for signage support, Chief Bolter and the many, many officers who provided us with safety and security on Election Day and through 14 days of early voting, Chris Carney and the staff at the library for keeping the 8,407 voters who participated in early voting and the 195 people who did Election Day registration informed and moving in the right direction. And of course, the over 100 people who worked the polls, counted ballots, and made the 2024 election a smooth, fair process for all of our community. And our amazing colleagues, Trish Monroe, Jen Espinal, and Colleen Fenn, the town clerk wonders. That's from them. I did want to include a comment from Chief Bolter that he sent to Mark, and which Mark forwarded on to me. Because our registrars are elected, I am not sure who this should be sent to. I just wanted to share that Susan Salina and Karen Cortez were an absolute pleasure to work with prior to and during this early voting period and Election Day. They could not have been more professional in the manner in which they carried out their work and collaborated with our department. It was very clear that their interests were to facilitate the right to vote, compliance with state and federal governing systems, and to public safety during the entire process. They were fantastic. So I know it's corny, but I have to give them a round of applause for the work that they did because they're not here tonight. With that, I think I will cut it short. Well, I did want to include one more thing. CCM sent out an election recap, and on November 5th, Connecticut residents went to the polls to decide the new state legislature, which will convene on January 8th, 2025. The Democratic caucus remains the majority party with 102 to 49 seats in the House and 25 to 11 seats in the Senate, pending a recount in the 8th districts. Voters also approved a ballot question creating an amendment to the state constitution for no excuse absentee ballot voting in Connecticut. So that did pass, and that's the piece that I wanted to include. And with that, I will turn it over to our town manager.
Thanks, Chair, and good evening, everybody. I'll try to be brief and go through some of these. We do also have a lot coming from the administration. Simsbury Celebrates will be held on Saturday, November 30th from 5 to 8:30 p.m. along Hot Meadow between Drake Hill and Plank Hill Roads. This annual all-ages event features a variety of fun indoor and outdoor entertainment, exhibitions, and demonstrations. The Simsbury Volunteer Fire Company has organized a holiday decorated fire truck parade to take place at 7:25 p.m. and the event concludes, we think, with fireworks show at Simsbury Meadows. That's if the burn restriction is lifted, and we can get the public more information about that in advance of the event. The event is free to attend, and there'll be food available for purchase from on-site vendors. I just want to congratulate the Housing Authority, members of the Board of Selectmen, and members of the Housing Authority Board joined Senator Blumenthal back on October 17th at Eno Memorial Hall to herald the award of a $640,000 grant for the Housing Authority, which is sorely needed to replace some windows and other things there. Want to also mention we're very proud to announce that our David Bush, who, as you know, is the chairman of the Culture, Parks, and Recreation Commission, has received the Connecticut Recreation and Parks Association's 2024 Public Service Award. So congratulations to Dave Bush on that. Also want to call out and give kudos to, from our assessor's office, our deputy assessor, Ms. Taylor, completed the Certified Connecticut Municipal Assessor Examination. Congratulations, Rachel, for doing that. We are very proud of you. On November 12th, members of the board and I attended the Latimer Lane Elementary School ribbon cutting. Just want to thank a team of probably 50 or 60 people throughout the organization that made that project happen. Obviously started years before I got here, but for me to be there at the ribbon cutting was really special. Education is so important to our residents and to the fabric of the community here in Simsbury that it was really exciting for me to get to say a couple words there and see that project actually come in under budget. So we were very happy about that. We are going to issue the town manager's report tomorrow. We're just adding a few things that came in just today. It's been a pretty exciting time, but I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll start down with Curtis. We have Selectmen liaison and subcommittee reports. Anything you wanna throw out?
Mentioned the Housing Authority and the money, so that's good. The Police Commission have 3 people who are, their term expires January 1st, so I think we have to take action on that too. Let's move it along. And then right now there's a zoning meeting, so I'm not at that meeting. That's all I have.
I just have from SVAA for October reporting. Their total 911 calls were up to 260 from 212 in September. SVAA dispatches 249 versus 200 in September. 169 transports, which is also up from 136. Their mutual aid in was 11 and their mutual aid out was 30. But everything was also up from this time last year, from October last year as well. So that's all I have to report from SVAA. I don't have any other reports.
Okay, thanks. I'll just throw the personnel sub report out there. Heather, myself, and Steve met and we spent quite a bit of time in executive session talking about the IPBO police union contract, which is in our agenda tonight, which we had an executive session on earlier, and it will be coming to the public discussion later. The finance subcommittee met, which is Heather, myself, and Curtis, to start looking at capital projects and ranking prioritizing projects in advance of the budget session, so we know, the Board of Selectmen can rank what's coming and see where our priorities are and which projects we will try to move forward in the budget process, and that's all I have.
Okay, Simsbury Housing Policy Advisory Committee, under Mark's tutelage, we have closed phase 2 and we are in the final phase of doing a deep dive on 6 to 8 recommendations to come back to the Board of Selectmen regarding housing. EDC, at that meeting that we continue to interview yet another business as has become the practice, and we established the pillars to expand upon. With Simsbury Main Street, they continue to get ready for Simsbury Celebrates, that event. And another event that is coming up is a Shop Simsbury event. That's the weekend after Thanksgiving Day. And it's November 29th and 30th, and some businesses in town, not to be limited to these, but give you back 20% as a thank you bonus. Those are RJG Flowers, Andy's Italian Kitchen, Antonio's Restaurant, Bosco's Garden Center, Fitzgerald's Foods, Gather on Hot Meadow, Harvest Cafe and Bakery, Illumina, Skincare Massage, Kindred and Crew, Mars Simsbury Paint, Meadow Asian Cuisine, Necker's Toyland, Present Company Restaurant, Ravenswood Natural Health, Suburban Living, Valley Home and Gardens, Vincent Sports Shop, and Weldon Hardware. So for all local residents, if you go in person, you get 20% for any gift certificates you choose to buy. So thank you.
What are you buying me for?
A gift certificate to Antonio's.
Diana.
To support that, as town manager noted, we attended a ribbon cutting for Latimer Lane. It is really amazing to see the improvements. They also had a review of the elementary school curriculum. There was a report presented, and you could see that information in the minutes from the the November 12th Board of Ed meeting. For SIMPAC, there is a board meeting this Thursday, but their last meeting, they are full in on their executive director search. There is a interim executive director currently filling the position now, but they are looking for a permanent executive director, and they narrowed the qualifications that they're looking for. They kind of narrowed the scope of what they're looking for within that executive director search. For the Aging and Disability Commission, we had a very successful Sensory Halloween event for people with disabilities on October 30th at the Simsbury Public Library. We had about 50 attendees at that, and it was a really great event. And now we have just opened up today signups for our Sensory Santa event on December 14th at Simsbury Public Library, again for residents with disabilities who would like private time with Santa, who would not be able to enjoy or the ability to go to the mall or whatever to sign up. So this is a wonderful event sponsored by the Aging and Disability Commission, but also we have gotten support from the Lions Club, the Simsbury Volunteer Fire Auxiliary, Women's Auxiliary, as well as the Junior Women's Club, who are all helping both with the Halloween and the Santa event. And then Culture Parks and Rec, they have started a long-term clubhouse facility improvement committee to look at the facility up there and the deficits that currently exists and how they can address that. And they also looked at the the trails, the Curtis Park Trails Improvement extension, and we know that there's some delays in that, so that's where we are.
Thank you. Kevin?
So save the date for March 23rd next year. It's a report from both the DEI Council and the library. This past year was a successful Human Library event, which is an international organization that encourages sharing of unique and special stories, and the individuals are a book that can be checked out, and you can have an individual conversation and share a perspective that you might not have had. And so the DEI Council and the library are going to host another one, and have received the license to do that next year. Special thanks to the Friends of the Library. At the end of October, it was a National Friends of the Library week, and last year over $80,000 was gifted in support of library programs from the Friends, and so thanks for the work that they do. Last month, well actually the month before, was library card sign-up month, and year over year there were 54% more signups for library cards, and so that's great engagement to see in the town. There was a discussion at the library trustees meeting, and I think this is a step in the right direction about discussing whether or not their meetings would be broadcast live through Simsbury TV or another means. Over 230 people, I guess, watched the July meeting, and so they're reconsidering what they had previously considered not doing and putting those out live. And I think that that's a good thing for all, just because there's lots of interest from time to time, sometimes less interest and sometimes more, but this is I think a good thing for the community to have those meetings out and open to share the good work that the trustees are doing on behalf of the library. early voting was already mentioned. The number I have here from the library director says 8,602 votes. Maybe that's why there's a recount happening tomorrow. But either way, I thought it was great that the library was able to make that space available for actually such a long term, and I echo the congratulations you gave First Selectwoman to the registrars and to the volunteers who had to put on something that really hadn't been done, like that in this community, and obviously the residents found that valuable. That's a lot of votes to have come in early, and so I'm glad that went off successfully. This board voted on accepting a PEG-PISA grant. It's a public education and governmental grant from the state, and so that's been in place now at the Technology Learning Center, and so that room is perfect and available for large Zoom meetings and trainings, which are more common these days. Not that everybody is on Zoom or everybody's in person, but that there's a combination, and so this is a modern facility that will allow for that right in the library. That's all for me. Back to you.
Okay. Okay, now we're up to moving items to the consent agenda. There's not very much that we can move, but so on my list, I had the refunds of tax overpayments, which is item B, and I also had the appointments and resignations, item A, and would like to know if others would like to move E and F, the farm leases, or discuss those to the consent agenda.
I'm fine with moving on.
objection. Yeah, fine.
Okay, so can I ask for a motion to move B, E, and F of the selectmen action and appointments and resignations A to the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, those are out. Okay, so the next item up is the referral to planning on the purchase of 2 Farms Village Road. So this came, this was proposed as an agenda item, and we presented an agenda, the point that this project hasn't even been made public. Alright, we've met in executive session multiple times to offer guidance when the Board of Ed came to us with this project, our town manager and our finance director. So we've had multiple executive sessions, the Board of Finance have had executive sessions to validate that there are future savings. And we asked, again, to include in here the Board of Ed proposal. We also asked for a letter from Matt Curtis on this proposal, so that we could obviously make this public, and also the packet that we received with all the financials are included in this thing. A couple things that I wanna say about this, we're not making any commitment to this purchase at this point in time if we move this forward. The Board of Finance has reviewed it and found that the projected savings are viable. Our Finance Director, Amy Merriweather, has done extensive work on the finances and answered multiple questions from all 3 boards, so thank you, Amy. One of the questions that I asked was why would we refer it to planning before we have any commitment to make any sort of purchase? And Mark, I'd like you to answer that question because it did come up from the public today. And also, is there any process defined on the sale? There's of the purchase. We've been discussing a sale of land, but what is the process for a purchase by the town of an asset?
Thanks for that question. So just to clarify, the purchase is not subject to 21-8, which was the local ordinance that was discussed fully during public comment. So the purchase under state law requires this board to refer the proposal to planning for a review and an advisory opinion, which would come back to this board for further consideration. To answer your specific question, you wouldn't do it the other way. State law requires you to present it to them and get their opinion and then act if you so choose. So you couldn't act and then refer it to them. The question, I think, was for our staff was at what point in the process do we ask this board to refer it? Do you wait until you have a complete deal that's already, before the board for approval? We didn't think it was appropriate to wait that long. The executive session and the FOI rules in the state of Connecticut did provide us with the opportunity to go into executive session for the sole purpose of discussing the negotiations in terms of price and the proposed purchase of the property. But this is now beyond the scope of what we should be in executive session for. We're now talking about the programming, and we're now talking about asking a sister board, in this case planning, to give you an advisory opinion. So for that reason, we're comfortable asking you to refer it to planning now. I would just echo the first selectman's comments that in no way signals board approval for this. That will come later if at all. The letter that you have in your packets tonight is jointly signed by Matt Curtis, our superintendent of schools, and myself as town manager, recommending that you refer it to planning. And again, keep in mind, planning, may have their own questions, and they may need to, they have the authority to table something and have discussions as well. So we wanted to make sure that with the holidays coming, that if you're so inclined, you get this to planning now. It seemed to make good sense to us.
Questions, anybody in here? Well, I do have a question, of course. I had thought, for some reason in my head, somewhere I thought it read that the planning commission had to hold a public hearing on a purchase, which I found since then is not true.
Correct.
One thing that I'm
There
proposing,
needs to be one on a sale. Again, I think there was some confusion because this is happening at the same time as the proposed sale of the other property, and things get a little bit confusing. So it does need to be a public hearing with respect to the sale of town-owned land. So.
okay. One thing though I am considering, given the size of this project and the future impact to the budget, is having a public hearing ourselves or in conjunction with the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed, if we so choose. And I don't need to make that decision here, but I'm putting that out there that that's something that I would consider doing. There's nothing written that says we have to do that, but given the size of this project. So just for FYI.
And we do have a tri-board meeting coming.
And I've suggested to have it at the tri-board. I pushed that out to a couple people as an idea.
That's a good idea, I think, if the other chairs are
Yeah, I haven't talked on the chair of the Board of Ed, I just mentioned it today. But I was thinking that would be great because it will be incorporated in the budget and we could have a hearing there. That leads to a question that if it goes to planning before we've had a chance to have a hearing and all of this can come out, they could make a referral not knowing any of that information and hearing from the public.
I think that planning, and again, there'll be different views on this. I don't want to imply that I'm the definitive authority on it, but I would say that the planning board's purview and review of this is for its applicability and fit within the POCD. As we heard tonight, that's true, and other things, but not the fiscal or, the fiscal component of this is Board of Finance. The programmatic, to the extent that it's programming, is Board of Ed. I don't think that the planning board is going to necessarily be looking at the financial components or the merits of whether or not the town should embark on the programming. That's not something planning would look at.
Yeah, no, I get that, but I'm just saying the fact that we would be having a new school in town in that location, I don't know if there's any planning impacts to that.
Well, let me just, I will just say this because I made a couple of notes during public comment in opposition to it. And again, for the same reason that you're worried about and concerned about the getting ahead of ourselves. It's also, I think, a little bit premature to oppose it. Because all the facts aren't out there. So just as you're saying, you can't support it, and this, if you do act favorably tonight, doesn't signal that you're in favor of it. I think it's also fair to push back on public comment that's opposed to it without getting all the facts out as well. So we've established that, this is something the Board of Ed wanted to look at. The only thing I would add for your consideration as we move forward is it's not to build a new school.
Right.
It is to expand the programming and bring back students who are currently being tutored out of district, right? And wherever that may be, Torrington or New Haven or wherever. But more importantly, one of the things that we've talked about in executive session that I can now say publicly is the condition and the nature of the modulars that are currently there. And that is an important consideration. And I've urged you, and I would say it publicly now, take a look at the condition that's over there, because that is what's been there for 20-some years. And it's long overdue for a replacement of some kind. And to me, that's a big component of this. So just ask you to keep that in mind, the condition and the nature of educating our children in those modulars is something that I haven't heard anybody discuss, but it should be discussed. So thank you.
Yeah, I echo, I do discuss the
You
education
do, yeah.
Of conditions on the modulars and the inadequate, quite honestly appalling conditions that vulnerable students are being educated in currently. And as you said, bringing students who by law we must educate and are currently being outplaced for various reasons, often resulting after a lawsuit to the school district. They sue the school district for outplacement at a great cost. We're paying exorbitant outplacement tuitions to bring them back in-house is an extreme savings. So it's not a new school, it's actually providing building space for students that we currently must educate who are Simsbury residents. Then at a future time, if we can bring in out of town tuition, it is a benefit, of additional tuition, kind of like a current transition program that we currently have in partnership. So to speak to the regionalization, you can't regionalize programming, you can regionalize shared services from a state level, because the federal law is free and appropriate public education in your least restrictive environment, and then often means your home school. So to bring the students in and be able to educate students in their home district at a lower cost to the district, and it's almost like an extension building. It's not a new school because we're not developing new programming, where even the faculty and staff that is listed in there, it looks like it's new, but it's not all new hires. There's shared, what's nice about that building is that it's shared staff from the high school and other schools traveling, and there's travel costs, but when you're talking about 0.5 higher, head count for that education, it's usually somebody that we already have in district. So again, I'm just giving facts, that's not an opinion, this is wheelhouse of special education and understanding how special education works, because it is a complex issue, and how students are educated in district as well as being outplaced, and the number of special education referrals is rising. And I do have concerns, and I'm not scare tactics, but that we are going to have more and more lawsuits to sue for outplacement if we don't find a way to keep more students in-house for appropriate education and appropriate places to educate students.
Okay, the only other option is we would table this. I'm getting the sense that people would be willing to vote on this tonight, as long as we understand that, I just wrote down my questions, that, we're following process, and that we are not getting ahead of our skis by giving this to planning before we've made any decisions on that. I'm looking to our town manager for the professional blessing on that.
I think I can definitively say yes to both those questions. And planning, I'm sure, would appreciate getting this referral, before it was the 11th hour, as negotiations may get heated as we get closer. So it's appropriate to do it at this time. Thank you for your support, Chair.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask for a motion effective November 18th, 2024, to refer the exploratory purchase of 2 Farms Village Road, I'm not reading the number, to the Planning Commission pursuant to CGS Section 8-24.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I think it's important that if we don't necessarily support this sale in concept, that it wouldn't make sense to refer this, now. So it would be my understanding that if I vote in favor of this idea tonight, unless I hear something throughout the rest of the process that changes my mind, I'm in support of the overall process. I don't know if that's the rest of the board's understanding.
If that's the concern, then I would I don't have that same view. My view is, I'm not voting on the purchase and the program, I'm voting on the referral. So
It seems like a pretty involved process to go through just for an exercise. If this board is providing leadership and saying that this is a path that we agree with, and we wanna put this forward for consideration by a partner board to do its due diligence and purchase of this property, then I understand and I agree. But if it's the intent for the majority here to not support this process in the end, I don't think that that's worth their time.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be honest, I think it's part of due diligence is to get their input. We're not just asking them for a rubber stamp, we're asking for their input. So I appreciate and respect that point, but I actually have a slightly skewed point in as much as I'd like to see what they have to say in regard to this sale and how it fits in with the P O C D, et cetera.
and on top of that, I would like to hear from the public, to hear what the public has to say.
That's, yeah.
So
that's further.
I don't know how to handle that, because if you're saying that, if your intent is that we're voting on this to approve the project, then I would not vote for this. And I
There are
would
some
table
boards, there are some boards and commissions that are required to hold a public hearing whether or not anybody on that board agrees that that's a good project. You know, zoning and planning, for instance. They have to hold the meeting and they have to discuss it. If we put something forward, it would be my understanding and my expectation as a member that I'm supporting it, at least in concept. And Stephen, I agree with you, only if we think that it's still a good path and a right idea to do. I'd like to get their input, but not if I'm gonna say, well, that wasn't convincing enough. So I'm just saying that I would like for this board to be, or at least vote, if we're voting in favor of it, to be in support of the actual process and the project. And then just to comment on the public comment and the public hearing part, I think it's very difficult to ask the public, as enlightened as they are, to provide commentary to this board when we've had the benefit of individual conversation and presentations and all the rest, when we haven't done the actual presentation and making the case, or them having had the opportunity to hear the idea that this is an opportunity to insource. And even though it's laid out here, it's not the same as the narrative and making the case. And so I'm worried that if we're going into this and saying, well, we're just passing this along, we'll get a referral and we'll see what happens, and then we'll get yelled at in a meeting, and then we'll decide not to vote for it in the end after we find out that there's enough people that said no. I'm not interested in having that kind of a discussion. So I'm worried that if we push this forward, that in the end, we'll end up voting no without having actually given the opportunity to make the case.
Right, because to your point, there's a lot of people even on this board, I mean, this project and the need for it and the complex understanding of special education and the needs of special education is not something that a lot of people are fully versed in. I happen to be one of them and have this board has had the benefit of some input that because I experience it, I live it, and I have 20-something years experience in this.
Mm-hmm.
But, that doesn't mean, because you're right, when you just look at a presentation on the agenda, to the general public has no idea what that all means, and the understanding of what this looks like versus what it actually means may be two very different things.
Well, here's a question, is the Board of Ed going to do a presentation on this project at the Board of Ed meetings before any of, it's coming out here and it's not really our project. It's our project because it's a capital purchase, but the Board of Ed, have they done this in public yet to this date? To speak to this?
I can take that again, as I mentioned earlier, the question about at what point do you bring it into the public domain? We made that decision at the staff level that it was appropriate to ask this board to make the referral. And so at this point, everything other than the negotiation about the terms of the deal is now public. We are continuing to operate within the authority of FOI and open meetings laws with respect to the negotiation, but everything else is open. I would say that I see both sides to this debate, and that certainly the opinion of planning is helpful, whether you're gonna support it, whether your view is to support it now or not. So we would urge passage and referral if the board's so inclined.
Are we allowed to table something in the middle of discussion?
We can make a
can,
motion
because
to
we-
table the motion on the floor.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the
Oh,
motion.
no, we just table the motion, like, so you have a motion that has been approved and seconded, and now we can vote to table, somebody can move to table the motion.
Okay, I'd like to ask for a motion to table the motion.
Well, who made the motion?
I did.
Who seconded it? Heather, okay.
Heather.
So neither of them can,
Yeah, Diana has to.
I have to make the motion to table it.
Okay, then
Or
it's up to you,
withdraw,
right?
Oh.
You could, right? It's more complicated than I expected tonight, so
well, let's see if there's a motion
We
made.
haven't voted on it yet.
okay.
The math
We
doesn't
haven't
work.
voted on it yet, we just made a motion to open it up to discussion and then vote.
So it's a
So
Um,
it's
So you know, we're discussing the validity of, so I think, Mark, to Wendy's question though, is there an intent for the Board of Ed to make a public hearing or a public presentation of what this means, what the project really entails, what the benefit to the town is, what the benefits to the students of the town is, and to the taxpayers of the town, you know, to reduce special education costs, including some of the exorbitant transportation costs that are associated with outplacement. So where is Board of Ed's transparency and presentation to the people of town so they understand this project as it lands on our plate to refer to these other boards?
Right, great question. So that would occur once a deal was negotiated, because if it isn't negotiated, it's a dead, it's dead on arrival. If we get a contract of sale agreed to, then it shifts to the Board of Education to make the case, as we tried to have them do in executive session, for the programming component. So to your point, Wendy, yes, it becomes the Board of Education's programming ask in terms of the budget. And it's up to the Board of Education, the superintendent of schools and his staff to make the case to all of those who would be involved in the approval process. That's this board, obviously the Board of Finance, and a favorable recommendation from planning. So there's a lot of components to this. What we're saying to you tonight is that it's the appropriate time to refer it to planning. So now you've got two parallel tracks. The negotiations will continue, may or may not reach a deal. But while that's happening, we've started the process of asking planning for their recommendation under that section of state statute. If these things come together, then the Board of Education has gotta come and do the presentation that they started in executive session.
So if you come to an agreement on a negotiated deal and the positive referral comes back from planning, the Board of Ed makes its case, public hearing happens, and it is decided that this is not to move forward, what happens to that negotiated deal?
The deal would be contingent upon, and it is a contingent, in fact, the way we are, as I described earlier today, are still far apart on some of the terms, but any offer that the town makes is contingent upon all of the necessary approvals. And to the extent that this board wants a public hearing, that becomes part and parcel of the approval process. So it may not be required, but it may be desired. And certainly any offer would be contingent upon all of those approvals. I don't see any harm in this board referring it to planning for an advisory opinion now, as opposed to after, if we were to get a negotiation price, you know, doing it then around the holidays. It made sense to staff to ask this board to refer it now. We understand the finer points of this, but it is a bit of a process because all three boards are involved, the Board of Ed, the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, now the Planning Board, and plus the administration's trying to negotiate something that makes sense for from the financial side of this, so a lot of moving pieces.
Is there any budget impact? Cause we're trying to hit January 9th.
Yeah.
As far as capital, so
So-
if we were to wait for a public audience, I
Yep.
mean, without doing the dual track, would we still be able to hit that?
I don't wanna get out in front of the school superintendent on this, but I will say, and I think I alluded to this in executive session, that the school board had, the school side had a surplus in the previous fiscal year, some portion of which might be helpful to defray the cost of the total package. And so to your point, Curtis, from a budget perspective, in order to draft my budget and submit it to you, I need to know whether this is gonna happen, and if it is, how much of that surplus from the Board of Ed side is gonna be applied to it, and that's something that we can't get to until we've got all the other things done. So I think, as I said, there's a lot of moving pieces. A good portion of the cost could be borne from that pot of money. And it's important that we start those conversations, so. And the funding for this is obviously the big issue. How do you fund the purchase, how do you fund the build out and the programming? As I mentioned in executive session, I can share publicly, all of the programming and the build out part would be done as part of the budget. Only the purchase and the authority to enter into the purchase agreement, subject to all the other approvals, would be soon, potentially.
So it goes back to you, do you wanna vote?
If we vote and it gets shut down, what happens
Right.
next?
If we don't refer it, we haven't referred it, and that process can continue, but Mark could still continue his work and we could refer it later.
Yes,
We can always refer it later.
that's what I was gonna say, so.
I think if you vote against it, I think that sends a signal through the negotiations, everything else. If you table it, I think that also sends a signal. My worry is, I think there's hesitation among the members here, and I worry that we just went through this. And that if we're not convinced that this is the right thing to do, then I don't wanna give a signal that I think that's the right thing to do.
My feeling is, it's not necessarily related, it's the timing of doing the referral is my concern here.
Yep.
Is this out of order? Is this the right time to do it? And it's not necessarily about the project, because all along I've been told, and I've said, I'm not voting on the project until I see the project in front of me. So referring this to me, as you pointed out, is indicating that I'm for the project. I'm not against the project, but I'm not voting yes on the project tonight. So if that's the opinion of the board, that that's what we're doing tonight, then I would not. I would rather table it or wait to move this motion forward.
I think that we have a responsibility to make the public aware of what this is and make the
Agreed.
case. That may not be fully incumbent on us, but we have the authority and the responsibility to make these referrals as part of the process. But I do think that because of the sensitivity of this project, we haven't been able to take it out of public session before. This has now been made to the public's attention because of this referral. So now the cat's out of the bag. However, I do think that the public need to be aware of what the details are, so that they're aware that we've done the due diligence and at least the conversations that we're having, and maybe some of the unanswered questions that need to happen as part of that process. But still, with all that said, I don't know that all members of this board are convinced that this is the right time, the right building, or the right program, or whatever the other answers are. It's not just a detail about whether or not we want to know whether or not planning is gonna say it's okay. I think I know what they're gonna say. It's just part of the process. It's the other details that we're concerned about, not whether or not planning thinks it's okay. Motion's on the floor. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes, no, I want to understand how we best move forward with this.
It's your call.
I know it is.
I'm glad it's not mine, so I'm always not tired of being in the hot seat.
Do we have a motion and a second?
We have a motion,
Yeah, we do,
it's
so-
and I motion.
So I'll make a motion to table the motion.
I thought I couldn't do that. I thought I was trying to do that before and you said I couldn't do that.
I think it's acceptable. I'm not a Robert's Rules expert. I think if it's the
You can make somebody else
we
can make
wanna
a
get to the
No, I was
to
told I
the
couldn't.
what does the board wanna do? So, I don't think you stand on ceremony here. Where you could table it. I would just remind the board respectfully that you only have one meeting in December. We're starting a very intricate and complex budget process. We've been asked to move the budget process forward by a couple of weeks, which we've done. We've got 2 holidays coming. We've already been in negotiations for 6 months. I would strongly urge the board pass it and refer it, if even with the comment that, it's not an assured sign or shouldn't be taken as an assured sign. But I've said all I can. Thanks for the patience in listening. I just don't, from a resource perspective, to come back to you in December, I don't know what will have changed in December that isn't there. We need the advice and not the consent, but we need the recommendation of planning.
Right, because you're saying that it's not like the Board of Ed is going to make a presentation publicly and have more public information between now and our December meeting if we table this vote.
And I think it's important to know if planning has some reason, but in their view of the POCT or other things related to education particularly, that I may not be aware of, I think we need to hear from them.
Okay, so I'm just
And
gonna
that
call,
could also be helpful when a public hearing comes about.
Yep.
Kind of where planning landed on it as well, just provides some, it supplies more information to the resident to some extent for them to talk about during a public hearing.
For clarification, planning doesn't have a public hearing on it too, it's just closed,
Right.
correct?
Right.
So
But-
it's just get a sampling of their opinion, if you will.
Well, I think the first selectmen's indicated a preference to have a public hearing even if one isn't required, and we talked briefly about maybe, getting the other chairs to put something on the agenda at the tri-board meeting if they were inclined to do that. We don't have an opinion on that, it sounds reasonable to me. I just don't see any reason not to refer it to planning and get their advice on this.
We're pretty certain about the planning. It doesn't include anything, it's just really getting a.
No, that's a
as far as
good
the
point
rules
too,
go.
right, no matter what planning says, that a lot of things have to happen before it, it's not like you're required to act favorably if planning recommends you to. It's still your decision and the Board of Finance's decision as well.
so I'm gonna call a vote, all those in favor of moving this forward, say aye.
What are we voting on?
We're voting on the motion that was originally on the
Original.
table
Yeah.
to move
Move
it
it to
to
planning.
public.
You didn't get a second on your
Didn't get
table
it,
though.
failed due to lack of a second.
So
I'm okay moving it forward, so
I'm
I'm
moving
a yes.
Yeah.
Okay, any abstention, I'm gonna be a no, so it's a 5-1 vote to move it.
No, it's
4 to
4-2.
Oh, you voted no too?
You voted no.
Okay, so 4-2 is in favor to move it to planning.
With the understanding that we're not voting on the proposal, we're voting on
On the referral.
the additional
Yeah, that was,
information.
yes, that's all that we're voting on tonight.
Trusting you.
Okay,
Thank you
that's
very much.
okay. We've moved the tax refunds to that. The next item we have is this'll be fun too, accept 2024 economic.
Just to remind the first selectman, you set the agendas.
I did set the agenda, but I did ask those questions before the agenda.
That's fine.
So the Economic Development Commission annual report and authorize the expenditure of the $7,500 in funding. This has been presented, this is the first time it's being presented to us in full, correct? It's been discussed at EDC, I believe.
A number of times.
So the motion is to accept the annual report from the Simsbury Economic Development Commission and then to okay the approval of the $7,500 that we put in contingency at last year's budget for the chamber, because we no longer have a tourist center, and they wanted to continue use. So I have comments, but I'm gonna open it up to everybody else.
If I could.
So yes, as the liaison, I will let you speak first.
Well, more as a board member, to be frank, we had asked when Ms. Seavey and Ray Langan were so nice to present to us, we had additional questions. In specific, the board asked to see a final proposal from EDC along with specific dates, the breakdown of the money and the progress of the project. We still have received nothing, to my knowledge, as far as the specificity of the project, when it would begin. We do know it's 12 members that are being potential, but we don't know what parts of the economy those 12 members would be drawn on. So I would respectfully request from EDC just a little more specifics of the program. I still feel it's a large expenditure if we're only gonna do 12 people. And another thing that was discussed was possibly doing half, which I could see that as a meeting ground halfway, where we try a few and see how it develops and sort of double down or adjust our future expectations from this project. But at this point, I don't think we have the full information to do a yes or no because it's still a very evasive package that I apologize, but I don't feel
Correct.
all the answers have been provided to us.
You had specifically even asked for the presentation to be even just that given in writing and we haven't received that.
No, we did that.
It was
Yeah.
pulled out, it was just pulled out what was included into the 2 pages of the proposal. I would add that I reread in the minutes, it did say what
Yeah.
Steve said, and I believe I'm willing to keep good relations with the chamber and EDC, but I believe that we would be owed, again, this is a project plan with the timeline of the listening tour, identifying the companies that were interested in participating, and even if they wanna do a survey to find who is interested and wants to participate, so that we can make sure that we talk to people that wanna participate. It says in here that it's a December to September timeline, it's a 10-month period. So would we have a review in April of the first half of this process? And do we fund the full thing or do we wait to see what we do? And then also what I don't see in here and I would like to find is what does a standard output look like? I mean, there should be standard questions and a standard output for each business that we see, so that we have a format that we see. To me, those are things that the chamber should be creating to support the $7,500 expenditure, and may or may not present that to EDC, but I did find in here that there's a lot of things that are being reliant on the EDC to do when we're paying the chamber to do them, and that's where I had a couple problems. It's in one place it says if the chamber can't make the meeting, the EDC will conduct the meeting, and that's not who we're paying to do this, we're paying the chamber to do this. And it says EDC will work with Ray to establish the list of questions, but maybe Ray, we're paying them if we're paying the chamber to do the project, they should do the project and create a project plan and work with EDC to engage and make that happen. So as I said, if we can get those things committed to instead of just kind of a description of the project, I'm happy to move forward on the $7,500. I did ask if we could split it up to see how much progress we've made within the first the 3750, but according to Mark, since it's a contingency, it has to go to the Board of Finance, so we don't wanna go to them twice, so we kind of have to approve it. I don't know if we can release half the money and then release half the money.
I think there's kind of a gray area here in that we're paying the chamber, but it's really an EDC project. And Ray is acting on, he's not supposed to be acting in this project with his chamber hat on. I think that's going to be difficult in some ways, but and it's not just for chamber members, but it's really meant to be an EDC project that Ray is
It's
putting
true,
time into,
and-
but that chamber's being paid, so just
Which is
kind of-
also Granbury Simsbury Chamber.
Well, we already said this is
Still.
gonna focus on
On
Simsbury, so
Still.
yeah, so let's just.
I characterize it as an EDC ask. EDC is asking you to release the money. The money was originally budgeted, $100 some odd thousand budgeted in economic development. The intent was not to give that entirely to Main Street, and we didn't. And for whatever reason, we got into an issue about essentially the vendor who EDC wants to use, and there were issues about the chamber and it becoming the Granby Simsbury and the tourism and all these other things that kind of, in my view, diluted the real issue here. And this is, sum it up this way. One of our charter created boards, commissions, the EDC created by charter, is asking you for funding for them to do what they wanna do under the business plan that they submitted to you. It has nothing to do with Ray Lagan, I wouldn't even put his name on it. Because if he can't deliver, the EDC is gonna find somebody who can.
Well,
And somehow this conversation got morphed into a conversation as if it was the chamber that was asking for the money. The chamber asked for money that was denied originally in part of the budget. For a host of reasons, we don't need to revisit. This is a completely new ask. It's coming from EDC. And I think EDC should be awarded the opportunity to act and have a little funding to do what they need to do. If Ray Lagan doesn't deliver, they won't use him again. And if they can't get the answers to the questions that they intend to ask, they'll find somebody else that can. But it is a volunteer board, as you all know. And Stephen has been at every meeting. He's been very diligent. He's listened to this many times, and I appreciate all the time. But they're volunteers. To ask the EDC to do anything, of this import without giving them any funding doesn't make any sense.
Well, I don't have they're asking the chamber to do this job, but it sounds like they're doing half of the job.
They're
So
doing
I'm
it-
saying the job should be done by the chamber to do this work, including them, but someone at the chamber should be managing this project is how that's all I'm presenting here.
We're all working on the same page. For example, we paid GovHR to do a bunch of work for us. It didn't give you everything you wanted. Now I've got our staff working on it to fill the gaps, right? So if you fund the EDC and we get less than what we want, which is the board's concern, that's on EDC. It's not on the chamber.
Look at it differently, but I guess.
I still,
Would it make any difference if it wasn't the chamber that was offering to do the tours? I think the answer is yes. If that answer is yes, then right, you're seeing that answer is yes. That makes my point for me.
But it's on a different vein. We partnered with a MOU with Simsbury Main Street. We made a decision to have a subcomponent because EDC couldn't do all the things Main Street does. So instead of many towns have a commission or whatever that truly does the economic development. Now we've already contracted with Simsbury Main Street, and before that program has evolved, we're saying, let's go in this direction too. And I really wanna work with the chamber and fund them in some manner, but I really feel like we are trying to find something and backfilling. What are they gonna do for the money instead of this is a need, who are we gonna get for a vendor? So it's not that I'm against the chamber, and I know it comes off that way. I want to work with the chamber, but I still find this a low return on investment. I know it's only $7,500 when you're talking a town budget, that is a pittance. But every pennies, my dad always said nickels and dimes make dollars. These are nickels and dimes, and if we don't have to spend it or the return is negligible, which with an undefined plan of action and results that are measurable, I'm still against it, so.
I don't
I'm
understand what nobody can tell me what that $7,500 is actually being paid and used for in this project. And I've said it when they came initially, and I'll say it again, 12 businesses is, in my opinion, we don't know what businesses they are, the size of the business. You have so many different businesses in Simsbury, their size, their number of employees, what their services are, who they employ. So how are they picking and choosing in this? And to me, 12 is too narrow of a scope. So you're gonna have like one restaurant and one auto dealership and one so like how are they getting chosen? And there are so many, and how is that helping economic development? So I don't understand where the $7,500 is actually paying for. If you wanna go interview businesses, go interview businesses. Record them. Like where does the $7,500 going towards? So
I think I agree with you, Diana, but I think also too, EDC is above the chamber, right? So to some extent, I believe you have to empower EDC and let them make a decision. And I don't know that 100% if we as a board need to make a decision on what they spend that money on. Like if they think the best use of the money, we've empowered them to help us grow, and if they think that's the best way forward, I don't know that we should necessarily have to tell them exactly what to do, because we need them to bring.
If I can, I just wanna acknowledge EDC is an advisory board. That's why it comes back to us. We have them, as a delegation to find ways to create and define economic development. So they are a branch of us, sort of like design review. is beholden to zoning as the actual board. EDC is the same, it's still us. And it's, as you know, one of our top priority. It is our top priority, as it is the town manager's goal for economic development. So we wanna throw everything at it we can. I'm just more of a proponent of slowing some stuff down and growing. We caught a rash of stuff today in public comment about moving too fast. And this seems like something that should really be addressed during the budget. Instead of just backfilling again, is my perspective on what's going on here.
So, can I throw a motion out out of order here, Mark?
Sure.
So I'd like to throw out a motion to authorize the expenditure of up to $7,500. And before, can it be dispensed in different increments? Can it be dispensed half and half if we move it to the Board of Finance?
We would automatically do that. We do that with Main Street, we do it
Okay.
with everyone. We don't
And if the
just
results
spread
are
it.
not, authorize the expenditure of up to $7,500 in funding from the contingency fund, which is where we put the chamber money in the outside agency funding and made it contingent on them coming to us. For the proposed listening tour, conditional on the fact that we get a defined plan, we get a timeline, we get a list of companies, and we get an interim report on the progress and the cost to make sure the next half should move forward.
So this coming out of contingency would mean that it's not out of the
No.
EDC allocated money
Correct.
from and how much is remaining in that, and what other ideas, if any, have been proposed for use of it?
There are no additional ideas. The remaining amount is 15,000. It was always envisioned that that would be to fund an alternative or a parallel or a complementary effort to Main Street. Because I did not want every egg in the Main Street basket, to be quite candid. And there was none. So municipalities have a choice. They can either have an economic development department, which we do not have, or you can outsource it. And the question for me when you first brought me in as town manager was, what do we do with the relationship with Main Street? And there were people on both sides of that discussion. As you know, I submitted a budget that put X dollars in for economic development. We decided to fund Main Street, actually fund them to a higher amount. But with this board's support, we created a work plan, and we also did that for a 3-year period so that we can measure results, and we're doing that. But it was always my intent to have and to start small, because Main Street had been funded to the tune of 50,000 for years without a work plan that I had seen. We started small, we put that money in, and it was also this board's charge, at least my interpretation was, that we wanted to breathe new life into EDC. When I got here, EDC had not met for almost 10 months. And when we polled the audience, we asked, why did EDC not meet? We got pretty much a common agreement about, dissent and personal relationships and so forth. But I think at the end of the line, for me, it was that the former EDC was not empowered, to Curtis's point, to really accomplish anything. For example, they spent a lot of time on the website. One of their members, her name escapes me, was working and trying to work with, I think Stephen, you would remember her work. And I think that, she left and her term expired. There was some exasperation that despite all of that work, we couldn't get the funding for the website that we just, again, couldn't get. So all of this is baked into the fact that economic development is your number one goal. It's because of that, it's my number one goal. We have a good relationship, a stronger relationship with Main Street. And we wanted to put a couple of other quivers in our belt. I think, Stephen, I'd grant you're right. There is a sense of, and I can feel it too, backing into finding what, I know exactly what you're saying. I'm not defending that. I'm actually going the other tack with this and saying that the chamber has a name recognition that matters to the world, regardless of what they used to do or didn't do for the town. And to say to EDC, no, we're not gonna fund your request to retain the chamber, just doesn't fit with your prioritization of your goals.
If I could respond to that, please. First of all, there was one other option on the table. It's $15,000 to start Wi-Fi in the town center. So that actually was proposed by EDC. It is a component of Simsbury Main Street. I wanna double down on my support of the chamber and the name recognition. And I just wanna call it out that I am utilizing the term backfilling, because that's what it is. We're trying to find a way to support the Chamber of Commerce, just like when you wanna support a local business. How do you support them? You give them some business. This program, and not the chamber, what name is irrelevant to me, is lame. Excuse the term. I have offered, as you know, to meet and work on what I think would be a good program. Main Street, we threw it out there, other money, they came back with the Wi-Fi. Not saying I'm for or against it. I'm saying they came back with another idea. The chamber has only come to us with this one idea. And we turned it down once when they said they wanted 15,000 for it. So now it's the same program at 7,500. And I'll be honest, it's what Diana said before, picking one restaurant is not a sampling of that industry. It's too narrow a bandwidth to really ascertain what's going on with economic development. And I feel to see how we are going to gain momentum with economic development by interviewing 12 businesses at the tune of $625 per business. It's just, I really wanna support the chamber. I really would have liked if they came to us with like 3 options instead of the same option and bringing it back again. I almost wanna push back solely, not solely, but hopefully that they will come back with a better idea, just to say it out loud. So, and the sooner they do that, instead of this hemming and hawing over interviewing 12 businesses, to be honest, EDC, one of the components of every meeting, of which there is at least one a month, we interview a business. This is actually being done, and it has always been part of the EDC agenda, including the past formations. This is already being done. We're like stirring the same pot that, to be frank, hasn't yielded any results, and double down on the same pot just seems like I can't use the word, throwing away money. There we go. That's the word. I just think there's a better idea out there if we
Yeah,
put.
so then nobody, can I just say, like, so no one has to make that motion that I mentioned. And we move on, I mean,
Take chamber out, I don't like
it's
this
out
idea,
there.
like it's not chamber, I like chamber, like Steven said. I like chamber, take the chamber out, I don't like the plan.
Okay, so then.
I think like, give me something tangible, where's measurable goals?
So EDC is driving that bus, right?
Right.
So I mean, I think the question is with EDC.
What do you mean? I didn't understand.
I guess where I'm frustrated is what's happening. If this isn't the right program and they're the ones charged to lead it and nobody's happy with what it is, I think the problem is there. So I don't know what the solution is, sorry, but I'm just saying, like, at some point, have we communicated that with Charmaine? Does she know?
She heard us at the meeting the first time we
So this
brought
is still
this
here,
up.
so I'm just saying,
They have pillars, which is their, for lack of the proper terminology, their goals.
Sure.
And they've ascertained what they wanna work on.
Okay.
And one of the pillars is to support the Chamber of Commerce, which I'm on board with, just to reiterate that.
Sure, you're on the record.
But this is the one thing the chamber gave them. So of all the choices they gave EDC chose one of the choices.
Yep.
My problem is the chamber only gave them one choice. So it's not EDC not doing something, they were sort of tied in as much as they had no other way.
I'm surprised
to
that
support the
we don't
chamber.
have Ray or somebody here, because I would wanna be if it was important, but I guess what I would say though too, on the other end of asking for money, sometimes if your liaison that you're working with says, yeah, this is gonna work and we accepted it and that's great, and then it goes forward, you think it's done. So that's why I'm saying, I don't have a problem with Charmaine, that's not what I'm saying either, just like you don't have a problem with the chamber. I'm just saying, that's the communication vehicle for us that's saying to Ray and the chamber, this is acceptable and this is what's workable, and it's $7,500 and it's a pittance, or all the rest. So I don't think that they've heard. So I would have hoped that, knowing this conversation that happened here, that Ray or somebody from the chamber would have been able to come here. They have a volunteer board as well, that could show. So those are the things that actually concern me more than just the other details here. Cause I gotta say, some of this interviewing businesses and all is a function of a chamber. And in some level, even though I wanna be sensitive with taxpayer dollars, supporting your chamber of commerce in a town seems like an appropriate function for the community. Because of the activity and like reputation that comes in front of it, no matter who's even there. The fact that it's the chamber coming, means something. And Main Street has worked hard on building a brand of its own that's parallel to that. So I guess what I am saying is, and not to try to put it on others that are, other volunteer board members and that, if we have the problem with what the chamber has put together, I think that we need to be more specific about what it is that we're expecting them to do, whether or not we disperse the funds to be in partnership with us. And that's the gap. We need to be proscriptive at this point, not say come back again. That's not it. We didn't like it, guess again. I think at some point we need to be proscriptive.
I, as the liaison, have offered that and have never been taken up on it.
Then that disappoints me, and that would be a reason for me to not support it. Steve, that's disappointing.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I am
Not
too.
not about you.
I am too. No, I didn't think you were disappointed.
I'd rather
Me,
give
Kevin.
$7,500 and see Spectacular come back.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Seriously,
I'd buy a booth.
right.
Okay, so if no one's taking a motion, I'm moving on, I guess is the question.
That's why you should have a motion on the table before you discuss
I did
it.
put the motion on the table.
I'm just joking. Go
I
ahead.
asked for the motion and nobody made it, right?
I was just, okay.
But is that correct?
No, this was like our first meeting, I was like, oh, you have to put a motion on the table to discuss it. And that's why I always said that we should have the motion on the table to
Because we
discuss it.
discussed it and we didn't have anything
Right,
to discuss.
and then we
But
would call
it's-
the question and.
But I personally like to know where people are before we get into the middle of a motion, so we have a good idea of where everybody
I
stands.
was being flippant and I apologize.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so there's no one making this motion. Okay, so the next item is the Economic Development Commission's annual report. So now I'll do what Kevin said. I'm gonna
I'll
ask,
make a motion to accept the report of the Economic Development Commission.
Second.
any discussion? Yes. How's that? I have discussion. I have a couple of things in here that I had a couple of questions on, that I would kind of like to see just corrected. One of them is, it's, the town manager who took over as the town's chief executive officer this past January was placed at top priority in driving economic development. I would like to insert there that it says in line with the Board of Selectmen's top goal of economic development. Just as a blurb in there to show that that is also our goal. That was this one thing I just felt like was missing in here. And the other question I had was on the tourism committee now within EDC. I thought there is no tourism committee. So we shouldn't be referring to tourism committee now with EDC. We should say the tourism function, because there is no committee.
To the library or something?
There is no committee.
There's no, Wendy's correct, there's no formal committee, it's sunsetted.
You mean the visitor center, Steve, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what this
But
says.
we don't have, like, they
That's
have
correct.
two people listed for the tourism
But
committee.
you're at the visitor
Which is
center.
Oh,
Sunset
you're on
Boulevard.
that page, hold on.
Yes.
So my only thing is I would
apologize.
like to include
Yeah.
that Mark's
So, like,
directive
more back.
is in line with the Board of Selectmen
doesn't
goals,
exist
just
anymore.
because
I
that is
see.
true. Give us a little, and then I do question the tourism committee wording, that should be changed.
Because even it says tourism subcommittee with library and historical society.
So they can just say tourism function would be more appropriate, in my opinion, just so there's no confusion that committee exists.
That first one that you're talking, the fifth one down, where it says tourism committee, I think they met with like members of the previous tourism committee.
When did we sunset the
We
tourism
did
committee?
it we did it
21?
before with
Yeah.
our last board.
So that would, that if it was sunset, it wouldn't be part of this annual meeting.
Right, so that's all, I just asked for that correction, tourism function. Because and the Facebook, because I've had discussions with the past person on the Facebook page as to what to do with the Facebook page because it was given to the tourism committee and there is none. So if we transition that to the tourism function of EDC, that would just be more appropriate. Okay? Those are my corrections, comments. Anybody else?
No, I think that they'll accept those recommendations as non-substantive changes to their report, and when we accept it, that they'll understand. I think that we can't really edit their document.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
they
So we were make them, yeah. So it's out in the, it's been out.
Yeah.
Okay, so all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. We thought tonight was gonna be
I read the agenda, I didn't.
Nobody thought it was easy,
I know, I spent a lot of time on it, but I didn't know it'd be this much conversation. It's good. Where's my pick? So the next item, I think,
Park supplemental.
is the approval of the
This should go quick.
Parks and Rec supplemental appropriation. This is I'll let you, Tom, if you wanna talk, but it's storm related.
Yeah, we're back to our August microburst storm, but the Parks Department has a money set aside each year for kind of maintenance of areas. And this, you can see the breakdowns for just under $19,000 in tree work, $6,000 on fencing, and about $743 in parts and equipment. So that was expensed as cleanup for that storm. The supplemental from the capital reserve fund would kind of replenish those, so that way they can continue on their scheduled maintenance plan for the rest of the year because this August storm was unscheduled.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't understand like why we would be doing a mid-budget. Why can't this go in their contingency? What if we have a lame winter that they don't use up much money plowing? Cause then we're doubling down. Why can't this just stay in the department until they've used up their bank, if you will? And why do we have to give this to them now? They haven't run down, and there's large variables like winter. Depending on the amount of precipitation, that budget can be way off in either direction, way too low or way too high. They are calling for yet another dry winter. So I think some of the funds, and I'm just guessing, might be in there, but I just don't see why we should be making this in potentially premature appropriation. Tom.
I'm gonna defer to Tom on this other than to tell you what I've heard and been educated by our colleagues over on the Board of Finance and the Finance Director, and that is when any line is close to being overpaid, we can't overspend that line. We have to come to you and ask for a supplemental. So the fact that the department head is asking for a supplemental tells me that they are overspending that particular line. What you're saying, I think if I understand you, Stephen, is there could be savings in other lines, we're only halfway through the year. Why would we need to do a supplemental appropriation when there could be a lot of wiggle room elsewhere? And my answer is that we can't continue to pay a line that's over.
What line is it, if you will?
There's three.
And
There's a bunch of them.
I would also add that our Parks Director, Parks and Recreation Director, asked our Finance Director kind of the best way going forward was the supplemental or to just kind of run over to the general fund accounts, and she recommended the supplemental path.
They don't have sort of a contingency or anything in place for potential like storms or anything? Or is this was just beyond?
I don't totally know, I can go check their line item budget, but
Well, not like Public Works does.
No, yeah, I was gonna say, I think like when you have
They
like
got nailed.
fencing costs.
Right.
They don't usually budget to have whole areas of fencing be destroyed, and they wouldn't have contingency necessarily sitting around for that.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering what the lines are, and excuse
Yeah.
my naivety, how snow plowing is a different line than a microburst because both
Well, snow plowing
are-
is
It's public works,
public
this is
works.
Parks and Rec.
Well, still the grounds at Oracle Farms, you know, that's a, you know, they have money and they haven't run out. So I just, you know, when my kid hasn't spent his allowance and he comes to me for a little more, I can't help it. I'm naturally like, you know, it just, sorry, it just, I don't fully comprehend why we need an additional disbursement. I'm just a cheap guy.
Can you
What can I
transfer
say?
within lines?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. The fact that they're asking for a supplemental tells me they can't or don't want to transfer. And this early in the year, I wouldn't either. So the storm caused these expenses. They weren't budgeted in that line, in that division. Public Works is a different story. I think I'd be guided by what the finance director and the division head are asking for, knowing that we can't overspend the line and the expenses are right in front of us.
Then why can Public Works absorb it?
They have a bigger budget and they have budget lines for, you know, snow removal and things like that that Parks and Rec doesn't have.
I did,
can't help being
yeah, and I
skeptical.
did ask Tom about this at one point and he,
Which Tom?
Tom
Taberski?
Taberski.
Well, I'm just saying, cause his budget isn't, his name isn't on the memo.
And I don't have him, but I basically, I'll ask the other question I asked him too. But one of the questions I said was, don't you have any money left to do this? And he said, no. And I said, well, how did Public Works get away with taking care of the microburst? Because they spent a lot of time of their own resources. And he said, because they had a lot more money in their budget to do that type of work. So that was from Tom. My question to Tom was, why didn't we do this as part of year-end savings with all the appropriations we did? Because this was in August, we knew they needed this money. Why didn't we just include this in that list? And I don't understand that at all.
That's a good question.
Managing, you know, budgets so I'll get a month-end report on expenditures and then I'll see what my lines look like and then I'll say like, oh geez, I'm getting pretty close to the limit here, and then I'll talk to my finance director as to how am I gonna fill this in with my mid-year, you know, budget update, and then I'm imagining a scenario
timing,
like this, that there's the timing here, when all the expenses are in, that invoice finally came in from the whatever it was, and so I'm imagining that's part of the cascade here. I'm interested, you know, Steve, in your hesitation here on the moving of the funds, cause at some point we're paying the bill. So
Right.
I'm
Oh,
kind
that's no
of, so
doubt.
right, so I'm just trying to figure out, because you know, thinking about from the budget end, and your analogy is like, okay, I had an extra expense this month and I, you know, depleted a bunch in my checking account. I don't like to have less than $100 in there. So I'm gonna move some over from savings back into checking, just so that there's a good cushion. That's what this feels like.
I agree, but you know, the budget should have some contingency and ebb and flow. I know this is an anomaly. I'm not flat out against.
I'm just trying to
extending it.
understand your perspective,
I
'cause
just
I'm
don't
learning.
understand because it's sort of like we need this right away, and to Wendy's point, we knew about it now for 2 months.
Yeah.
And I don't fully comprehend the additional monies when we're partway through a show.
I guess another question, we didn't make
You've
a
never put
motion
on a
yet,
show,
right?
clearly. Clearly, you've never put on a show.
That's true.
What's the downfall if we don't move the money over and they're over budget? I mean, we've been we've been high on revenues and like every year, so what's the impact if one line item or area is over budget?
Well, I can tell you what a department head's perspective is. He doesn't want his budget to look like it's underspent. Yeah, absolutely not. And this seems like a reasonable way to add parity to something that would be an unexpected expense.
So it'd be less just maintenance done in parks and open space areas for the rest of the year. That's what the line items coming out of that account.
We don't know what's left in there or anything like that? I mean, that's a big question. I
Right.
don't know what the
So,
line item
because yeah,
is and
Parks and Rec's area is not being maintained then for the rest of the year until June.
until
come-
June.
Come May, people will be like,
Yeah, we already get complaints on
I'm
that.
sure there's enough in there to get us through March or April.
May, yeah, that's why I said May, people will be like,
So I haven't heard anything that makes me concerned that this wasn't an appropriate use of funds or that the capital reserve isn't the appropriate source. So I'd be.
So I'm gonna, like I said, I would have liked to know why it wasn't done last month when we were sitting here going through a list. But I'm gonna ask for a motion effective November 18th, 2024 to approve a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $25,640, utilizing capital reserve funds for the reimbursement of parks and recreation maintenance funds and to recommend this to the Board of Finance.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Support.
Okay, I guess that passed. We'll see what the Board of Finance says. Okay, that's that,
May I ask to be excused?
yes.
We've been sitting here for 3.5 hours.
Is it 3:30?
Yes.
Do we need a recess or?
Okay, I'll make do a recess.
5-minute recess, please.
Four. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll put on my timer. Okay, we are now up to, there's no one's here left. Ratifying the successor collective bargaining agreement between the town and the IPBO local 458. So we have had executive session here tonight. We have had executive session in our personnel subcommittee, spent a lot of time on this. We found out today that this has been ratified by the union. So it's left to the Board of Selectmen to, where is it? Authorize the town manager to execute the proposed successor collective bargaining agreement. I'm not sure if we need any more discussion. We've asked to make sure that the contents of this are presented to the public because they're not here right now given the executive session piece, and we've been told that that will happen.
Sure.
So I'm going to ask for a motion to, oh, there it is. Move effective November 18th, 2024 to authorize town manager Mark Nelson to execute the proposed successor collective bargaining agreement between the town of Simsbury and the International Brotherhood of Police Officers, local number 458, for July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2028 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Any discussion?
Only one, did the public get the final unedited clean version, or are they getting all these track changes and everything else?
We'll be posting the clean version without any of the track changes.
That makes sense to me.
Will take the lawyers a few days
Yep.
to get that.
That makes sense to me.
And just to
That's
add, the all the contracts are online.
The current ones are online.
Yes.
You can go back into the town clerk's vault and get all the old ones.
We don't, but if you can go to, they're all there, to refer to any of the contracts.
Yeah, we replace the old with the new
Okay.
when it comes out,
Okay.
yes.
Great.
Town manager's webpage, you'll find it.
So all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that one's done. It's done. Oh, the meeting minutes, this is the fun one. So we have our 2025 regular meeting schedule. And it was pointed out today by Selectman Getz that June 9th is high school graduation. And we do have people with graduates this year. Do you have someone this year?
Yeah.
So your kids are back to back?
Yeah,
That's pretty funny.
lucky Lisa.
So a couple options, we have some months with, one option is moving it to, since the May meeting is the 12th, to do a June 1st meeting and a June 23rd meeting. Or do we wanna just do one meeting in June on the 16th? Will we be able to accomplish all the stuff that we have and to have just 3 meetings in the summer? Throwing that out to people, what they think. And if you think that we'll have enough time to cover all the business, that because we're such a productive board, we need every meeting to get everything done. Just a question.
I think staff's okay with having one, cause we know you're always willing to call a special meeting, Chair, and we
That's true.
appreciate that, so that's good.
What do you
Leave it
guys
up.
think?
I agree with
I
Mark.
agree. Okay.
You said June 16th?
Does June 16th work? Anybody looking that up and making sure?
I will
It's right after Father's Day.
June 16th
Father's
is right
Day.
after Father's Day.
Flag Day is the 14th,
The 14th, that's right.
right?
We'll have a special ceremony out front, won't we?
With the new flags.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Let's not go there.
not.
Let's just admire our new flags.
And one thing for you to consider, for the 16th will be a DRB and zoning meeting, but you've had overlaps with them before.
Okay.
So like
and so just
tonight, yep.
as your liaison, just will,
So we would do the 16th and then June 7th? No, not June 9th.
June 16th and that's
No,
it.
that's the only meeting in June.
I'm sorry,
No,
I'm
we
June,
had
June,
the-
July,
June 16th
July
works, so we're gonna
7th.
cancel the 23rd and the 9th on the
Yes, well, it's not canceled, we're just crossing out,
Whoa,
because it's
okay.
simple now,
Yeah.
right? The other thing, I didn't look at the one in the packet, but did we remove the October 27th one officially? Okay, we took that one out because it's the last meeting before an election and that's usually one that just to remind everybody next year's an election year. We usually try to remove the meeting right up before the election so that everybody,
So the October one is the 15th.
there's one in, right,
A
the 15th.
Wednesday.
Okay.
Yep.
So I ask for a motion to approve the Board of Selectmen's meeting as amended to get rid of June 9th and the 23rd and to include June 16th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye,
Can
okay.
you send out a new one?
Yes.
Thank you.
That makes
We'll send out all the calendar invites.
I like those, thank you.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I like them too.
This way I can adjust my calendar when I see it.
Okay, so I am going to, I gotta find what I'm doing here. So next up is the meeting minutes. I'm gonna ask for a motion to accept the October 16th, 2024 regular meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Kevin?
I have discussion.
No, I have discussion. Go ahead.
Do you, Kevin?
I wasn't here.
Oh, that's right! Oh, that's too bad.
It was on TV.
What did you say?
I said nothing.
Oh, I forgot. Okay, well, good.
How could you forget that I wasn't here?
You were,
I wasn't
you
making
were in
any noise.
California.
I was.
Okay, so I have a change here. I tried to get it in before the minutes were approved. So on page 5, it says Ms. Yaisley made a motion effective October 16th to approve the general fund year-end transfers as described tonight in accordance with the general fund transfer request document, and I expected that we would see the list of what happened on each items, but it just says as described. So I would like to insert the description of what happened and read that to the board and insert that in the minutes. I'll try to do it quickly. Ready? You got the, what?
I was gonna say, if you just have it afterwards, I can just input it in.
Okay.
So I don't have to type them as we go right now.
I like,
What was as described? I'm sorry.
so
The
so
motion for
this, the
year-end.
general fund year-end transfers, we
Okay.
voted on
You
some.
just want that list to be.
I want the list with the results in the minutes, so I don't have to read it.
I don't think so. We could also add it as like a attachment A.
Well, we have it, so if you read it, we don't have to capture it, we got the tape.
Okay, I'm just gonna,
Go through, it, yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna just quickly go through, cause Kevin wasn't here, you might wanna know.
I would love to know.
Okay, so the Ford computer and software, $2,600 was a 5-0 vote. The additional budget mailer for $3,000 was a 5-0 vote. The roof
To
inspection.
pass or to not pass?
To pass.
Thank you.
5, yes. Roof inspections was 5950, 5-0 vote. The library additional part-time for 12,680 was a 3-2 vote with Heather, Curtis, Diana voting in favor and Wendy and Stephen voting nay.
And that did not pass then
No.
because it needed them, is that the one?
That's the one it didn't go through.
No, it actually did go
It did go
Oh,
through,
that
but the,
one went through.
It was a very interesting situation that we had to check with the town attorney on, so this board voted by consensus 3-2, those were just the internal votes. But at the end, the motion was a single motion to approve everything as described, and that motion passed 5-0.
Okay.
So the town attorney was clear that the 3-2 vote didn't matter, it all passed, whatever
Got it.
passed.
but I have learned my lesson because I did suggest making a.
But the Board of Finance did not approve.
Wait a second, I wanna make this for Kevin, I did suggest making a motion here and was led to, I didn't have to, so going forward, I have learned my lesson that I'm going to make a specific motion
For each
for
thing.
each item, because whatever.
Yes.
So 3-2, the ask me was mandatory,
Right.
14,000, right, so that's good. The telephone system upgrade for 15,000 was withdrawn. The door for the library entrance, 15,000 withdrawn. The Simsbury Farms court repair for 16 blah was 5-0 in favor. The public furniture comprehensive study for 18.5 was at 0. Nobody voted yes, 4 of us voted no, and Diana was you didn't vote. Were you not in the room at the time?
Correct. Again, what happens when I drink too much water?
What happens when you have 32 liters of water in the.
She walked out on that one. Okay.
Sorry, Larry.
That's funny. The signage failed 0 to 5 for $20,000. The M34 industrial permits for $30,000 was withdrawn. Mark made our lives easier. The website was voted positively 5-0 by our board for $40,000. The internal control audit was withdrawn for $50,000 and the IPBO was moved to like whatever assignment, so that was withdrawn also. And so that was what was done,
Dry board of selectmen.
okay? So any other changes to the minutes? Cause it's, the motion's out there, somebody wanna, so I call for the vote, right? All those in favor of the amendments to the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Did you
and,
abstain?
I have abstained.
yeah,
Technically, I can vote in favor of it, but I'll abstain.
wanna abstain, let's do
I'll
it,
abstain.
5.
That's just clear.
Yeah, sure, cause that's what you should do anyway, Kevin. So, well, he wasn't here, Clark's,
Can I make a motion to adjourn or we have to
we
wait?
have one more thing, wait, we have two more, so anything, a motion on the October 23rd special meeting minutes? Anybody wanna make that motion?
Sure, so moved.
Second.
Any comments, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I just wanna point out the budget memorandum on the capital non-recurring projects everybody's received. ClearGov stuff, I'm actually talking to Melissa about trying to streamline some of that to make it easier, but I'll share that with you after that. So at that, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.